Chapter 812 Beautiful Willianna. Chapter 812 Beautiful Willianna. Many trees stood tall, each over dozens and hundreds of meters. Such trees were rare on Earth. However, they grew aplenty in this storm valley. Atop the trees, there were strange fruits, each of them not existent on Earth. However, their shapes and colors were pretty similar to those from Earth. A large number of men were dressed in simple clothing, carrying buckets to water the trees, apply fertilizer, and to weed out bugs. They were overseen by a few burly and powerful-looking female soldiers wielding spears and whips as they eyed the men coldly. Young girls and ladies were running around the fields, practicing shooting, archery, and other forms of training. As for the boys and young men, they were being taught by male teachers in the fields of textiles, farming, arithmetic, and other forms of knowledge. Many stone houses littered the plains of Storm Valley, each of them carrying a distinct style about themselves. The houses were also spaced neatly apart, giving a clean and fresh feel. Along the streets of Storm Valley, there were many groups of people walking around. Men were peddling goods and snacks on the streets as vendors, while women were largely carrying weapons and sauntering around. Behind many of these female warriors, there would be 2 or even 3 handsome and fair men. Some even had a couple of guys and girls who were bickering. The entire place seemed to be bustling with activity and vitality. The only difference would be that it was the exact opposite of a patriarchal society. In this Storm Valley, the women were the ones who fought and battled, thus they held the power. Men were in charge of everything else. In fact, many of the men here had a slight sissy air about them, with no sense of manliness whatsoever. Zhong sighed as he admired the scenery. This Luo Qing is truly capable. In the apocalypse on Earth, Zhong had come across his fair share of female-dominated factions. In those places, some focused on accepting only women and girls. Some would ostracize men and denounce them. Some even went to the extreme, killing any men they saw or taking them as slaves. To Zhong, most of these factions were doomed to fail as they had limited expansive potential, or some other faction would come around and swallow them. After all, reproduction was not possible with just women alone. Furthermore, those who went out of their way to hunt men were hunted instead. There were indeed capable and numerous female experts. However, in terms of absolute strength and power, men numbered more and held the advantage due to their physique. However, in this Storm Valley, Luo Qing did none of the above, instead using education and other forms of indoctrination to flip the roles of men and women. Making use of the men, while retaining the power of the women, the entire Storm Valley was managed well, a testimony to the capabilities of this queen. Willian grinned proudly. What do you think? Our Storm Valley is amazing, isn't it? Compared to the Sun Alliance and Pterosaur Mountain, while our numbers are lesser, we are the most united. Our people are happy and lead a blissful life. There's enough food, and we're protected from the external dangers. It's almost a heaven on earth. Zhong exclaimed. It truly is decent. The scenery of Storm Valley was beautiful. Food was abundant. Compared to the Earth before the apocalypse, it was just lacking a truly modern city feel. However, in such a world where mutant beasts and Dino-people were everywhere, it was practically paradise. Willianna heard his heartfelt praise, and the corners of her mouth lifted in pleasure. It's here to see you guys. As they came to a small garden with a 3M tall bungalow, Willianna bid the other female warriors goodbye and led Zhong into her residence. The room was clean and tidy, with a fragrant scent. Outside the room, there were plenty of flowers planted. Willianna slumped down on her couch that was covered with a dozen beast pelt, stretching herself as she looked at Zhong coyly. You should be able to set yourself free. It's your choice to remain tied. However, don't you find that meaningless? Zhong chuckled, and with a thought, a sliver of devil flame came to life in his palm, burning through the Type 3 beast tendon, breaking it apart. He then sat comfortably opposite her and asked while grinning, "When did you notice?" She looked straight at him with satisfaction. "Don't take me for a fool. You were able to walk alongside us without fear even after being tied up, and you could get past our Storm Valley entrance. One look, and anyone can tell that you're not simple. However, the fact that you could undo the Type 3 beast tendon so easily surpassed my expectations. I'm even more interested in you now. She stared at Zhong. Speak, who are you? What did you come in here for? Zhong replied, I'm Zhong. I really lost my way. Following you here was because I was curious about the Storm Valley. She pondered a while before giving up. Zhong? Never heard of you before. Zhong's accomplishments in the recent days had only been made known to the upper echelons of the Storm Valley only recently as well. In this world where information was backward, it was not as easy to keep track of information as compared to Earth. Willianna was only a low-ranking soldier, thus she did not know about Zhong. She scooted over towards his side, her eyes lit with allure as she hugged his arms and flirted. Hey, Zhong, I like you a lot, be my man. Zhong looked at this beautiful warrior and was taken aback. Me? Why me? Aren't there plenty of other better-looking men than me out there? The number of handsome men was truly astounding. Zhong had no choice but to admit many of those sissies out there were truly better-looking than him. At the same time, they would look at Willianna with respect, admiration, some even dared to leer. As long as she beckoned, they would immediately rush over, fighting to be her man. Chapter 8:13 Lingering Emotions. Chapter 8:13 Lingering Emotions. Willianna looked at Zhong, her pupils dilating as she gave off an incredibly attractive aura. She reached out to caress Zhong's jaw, laughing coyly. Those men are all weak and sad. They can't make me excited. Even if I look at them for a long period, I still find them disgusting. There's no charm at all. Be my man, Zhong. I will treat you well. He was being teased. Zhong blanked out for a while. He was actually being teased like a girl back on Earth. Willianna's gaze on him was like he enjoyed looking at beautiful women. Furthermore, it was the first time his jaw was being caressed like so. I refuse. He reached out in an overbearing manner and brought her into his arms, using a position of power to look down at this beautiful, sexy, and charming lady, before pushing her under him, and spoke forcefully. It's not me being your man, but you will be my woman. No, you must be my man. This flirty Willianna suddenly grabbed Zhong's body with a glint in her eyes, forcefully pushing him to one side, intending to gain the top position. After all, in this place, Willianna had been brought up to treat relationships with men as normal. A woman could have 3 or 4 men, and no one would bat an eye. However, if she was to do it, she must be in the top position and dominate. Although she liked this manly Zhong, she did not appreciate being dominated. Zhong was also caught unprepared for this little minx to suddenly explode with strength. He was thus flung easily to one side. Just be obedient and accept your fate. Willianna twisted and deftly swung her body over his, her face full of excitement, her smile enchanting. She used her strength and tore off Zhong's outer clothes before she was taken aback. She caught sight of the inner Type 4 mutant beast hide. On Earth, Zhong had commissioned the usage of the Type 4 sea snake scales to be made into 10 innerwear for his use. Its defense was astonishing, preventing even cannons from destroying it. However, even such a powerful defensive suit had been through the worst of wears and tears due to Zhong's conquests. This particular piece was already covered in many scars, especially the right arm area, obviously having lost the entire right portion before. Willianna used her hands to touch the Type 4 mutant beast hide, her eyes burning with desire as she licked her lips. This is great. You're really something else. I'm liking you more and more. She hated those weak, flower boy types, instead preferring men with strength and combat experience. Seeing the Type 4 mutant beast hide in its ravaged state, she became incredibly excited. Noticing her passionate gaze, Zhong's own desire was also set aflame, and he quickly flipped her over and chuckled. Not bad. I also like you, little minx. Willianna was caught by surprise and tried to exert her strength of 20 times that of a normal person. However, Zhong was a Type 4 expert possessing 38 times strength, No matter how she struggled, it was impossible to escape from his clutches. Both parties continued to struggle, their bodies entwining. In the end, following a moan of pain and pleasure, a bright red flower appeared on the pelts, before multiple moans continued after that. As the acts of passion continued for 2 hours, these two with terrifying physiques laid together, surrounded by the various mutant beast pelt. After the bout of sex, Willianna curled up in Zhong's embrace, wearing a satisfied smile. Not bad. Zhong, truly strong. Be my first man. I will treat you well. In the future, even if I get more men, you will always be my first husband. In response, Zhong slapped her butt cheek. Silly, with me, you could forget about having another man. Be good and be my woman. Otherwise, see how I take care of you. All right. She chuckled brightly, radiating bliss as she laid in his arms for a while more, before asking lazily, Zhong, did you truly come to Storm Valley just to take a look? Is there anything you need my help for? Let me make this clear first. If you want to do anything harmful to Storm Valley, I will not help you. After gaining Zhong, the satisfied Willianna dropped her icy stance and became a lot gentler. Zhong caressed her smooth skin and spoke. I really did come here just to observe, to see what the mythical Storm Valley was like. Oh yes, if I want to leave Storm Valley, will you come with me? You want to leave? Can't you stay? Willianna was taken aback and lifted her head to look at Zhong. Her eyes were filled with unwillingness. For me, can't you consider it? If you stay here, I can go out and hunt, feed, and clothe you well. You just have to stay at home to handle the chores and look after our kids. Zhong pinched her beautiful breasts lightly. No, I still have many things to do. Even if I stay here, I can't possibly stay at home all day to do the chores and look after the kids. You don't like such a man, don't you? Come with me. Willianna sunk into a dilemma, her thoughts in turmoil. In the end, she shook her head. No, I can't. My family, friends, and subordinates are all here. I can't give everything up to follow you. Although she liked Zhong a lot, it was not to the crazy extent that she could give everything up for him. After all, she was not yet blinded by love. Zhong sighed lightly, but did not push the issue. Forget it. All right, I would like to meet your queen. I need to discuss something with her. Sorry, I don't have that kind of clearance. She grinned apologetically before asking, Wait, why do you want to see Her Majesty? Zhong replied, I want to obtain some prehistoric tech from her. You just have to report to your superiors. Say the leader of Vulture Valley, Zhong, has requested an audience. She will most likely see me. Willianna frowned. Zhong? Vulture Valley's leader? Are you very famous? How come I haven't heard of you? Don't be too confident, Zhong. In the entire Green region, only the leaders of the 3 factions or Type 4 Divine Warriors have the qualifications to meet Her Majesty. Other than that, no one will possibly be entertained. Zhong chuckled. The Sun Alliance sent 100 Sun Warriors, and they were wiped out. If she knew this, she will definitely see me. Willianna's eyes widened in shock. For real? You wiped out 100 Sun Warriors? The Sun Warriors were the most elite of the Sun Alliance. Upon equipping the Sun Armor, every one of them would reach the peak of Type 3 Divine Warrior strength. 100 of them was not something even a Type 4 Divine Warrior could underestimate. Zhong flipped his hands, and a perfect set of Sun battle armor appeared in his hands. He handed it to her. This armor is for you. Treat it as a gift. Oh my goodness. It's real. This is amazing. Zhong, I love you so much. Willianna touched the armor and could not bear to put it down. She turned to Zhong with a hint of desire, kissing him passionately again. To an ordinary warrior, this sun armor was incredibly precious. To Willianna, it was even more precious than a 100-carat gemstone. She was thus extremely happy. She seemed to have forgotten her fatigue as she kissed him deeply. Let's do it again. After an entire night of passion, early the next morning, Willianna left the place, heading towards the palace of Storm Valley. She quickly returned. Following behind her were 16 members with green battle armor, as well as one of the 8 personal guards of the queen, Lan. Willianna was definitely a charming and alluring beauty, but beside Lan, she was somewhat inferior. Yinglan eyed Yu Zhong coolly and asked, "You're Yu Zhong?" Yu Zhong did not bat an eyelid. "That's right." Without any further bullshit, she turned around. "The queen has summoned you. Come with me." Willianna stood one side, looking helplessly at Yu Zhong before following Yinglan. She was a powerful warrior, but compared to Yinglan, one of the 8 Storm Greats, she was just a rank-and-file soldier. Yu Zhong was escorted by the Storm Valley warriors as they went towards the castle. He lifted his head to look at the Storm Valley, his heart filled with shock. This is the Storm Valley Palace? No way. It's basically an upgraded version of the Sky Fortress. Floating in the skies, there was a huge alloy structure stretching about 30 kilometers. This was the Imperial city of the Storm Valley. Chapter 814, Storm Imperial City. Chapter 814, Storm Imperial City. Yu Zhong lifted his head to admire that floating structure, his eyes full of shock. This was the first large structure that was made entirely out of alloy. Even the Radiant Battleship, a gold treasure, was not as big as this Storm Imperial City. What did they use? How could they achieve its anti-gravity? How much energy would this consume? Yu Zhong could not help but wonder as the questions ran through his head. Such a scene was still too shocking. On Earth, Yu Zhong had also managed to produce something close to the Sky Fortress, and it was able to float. However, it required a huge energy source. The floating city spanned over 30 kilometers, and one could tell that it must weigh a lot with just a look. If such a structure wanted to float on this planet, which seemed to have twice the gravity compared to Earth, the energy consumption was definitely not little. Even a Type 5 mutant beast nucleus would not be sufficient. The technology was truly way out of Yu Zhong's imagination. At the same time, as he observed carefully, he noticed that the huge alloy structure was not just one entire piece. Instead, there were various covers of different shapes all around. Since Yu Zhong had come across his fair share of technology and equipment, he guessed that those covers should be for the radars and weapons. Just 10% of this floating city's weapons was enough to annihilate any enemy. Compared to this Storm Imperial City, the Sun Alliance Palace was practically trash. Facing this, Yu Zhong's eyes lit with desire. If he could gain such a city, even if a 1,000,000-strong army came, they would be seeking death. A dozen mutant birds that had dinosaur heads with a pair of broad wings came swooping down from the floating city. From on top of them, a dozen female warriors jumped down. One of them came up to Yinglan and bowed. "Lady Yinglan, let's go up." Yinglan spoke coldly to Yu Zhong before leaping up to the back of one mutant bird. Strong. They actually managed to tame mutant birds as well. This Storm Valley is indeed a powerhouse and can definitely stand firm compared to the other 2 hegemons. Yu Zhong went up on another mutant bird and thought silently. Mutant birds were tough to tame. Even with the Sun Alliance comprising of many smaller factions, not one had managed to provide a mutant bird before. The fact that Storm Valley had their own was impressive. One young and nimble female warrior chirped, "Grab my waist and sit tight." Yu Zhong did not stand on ceremony and immediately wrapped his hands around her waist as a nice, tender feeling traveled up his hands. The female warrior grabbed her ropes and barked out once. Following that, the mutant bird flapped its wings and soared into the skies, heading for the floating city. In the city, there were lush greenery and strange plants growing alongside some strange trees as well. Countless beautiful stone structures were laid out all over the place. On the streets, a number of women with incredible looks and aura were walking about. The stark contrast of this imperial city and the rest of Storm Valley was obvious. There was not a single man to be seen. The flock of mutant birds came to rest in a wide field. Yinglan turned to Yu Zhong and spoke coldly. "Come with me." Yu Zhong followed her. Just then, 4 officers came up and stopped in front of Yinglan. "Lady Yinglan, please wait a moment." She had a curious glint as she asked, "What's going on?" One of the officers responded, "Her Highness Mei'er has ordered for Yu Zhong to be brought to the 100 Herb Temple." She had already discussed this with Her Majesty. Yinglan replied coldly, "All right, I got it." She then turned and brought Zhong to another location. Leading Zhong to a vast palace, she spoke, "This is the 100-Herb Temple. Please wait for a moment." After that, Yinglan did not seem to care about Zhong's opinions or staying back to discuss anything with him, as she quickly led her subordinates and left. Zhong frowned slightly before carefully looking around, his wariness heightened. He might be strong, and if need be, he could summon type 5 Mount Tai over with his tame beast summon technique to destroy this place. But he might fall here if he was not careful. Observing the place carefully, he did not detect any danger. He flipped his hands, and the radar-equipped tablet appeared. Bai Yi's image flashed on the screen, as Zhong asked, "Bai Yi, are you able to control the central computer of this floating metal island?" Bai was a super AI, and was able to display her abilities through computers. Data flashed through her eyes before coming to a stop. She quickly replied, "On this metal island, I did not discover any trace of computers. There are 3 possibilities. One is that it doesn't exist here. The second is that the metal island does not rely on any computer at all. The last possibility is that while the central computer exists, it's being shielded by some mysterious power, preventing me from detecting it. Based on the makeup of this metal island, there was definitely the usage of a computer during the building process. As for now, it is still tough to ascertain where the computer is, because the data lines have not been used for more than 100 years. Most sectors are actually down." Zhong frowned slightly. "Is that so? Seems like I have to ask Luo Qing herself." "Who are you?" As Zhong was deep in thoughts, a voice suddenly rang out. Zhong turned to the source of the voice, discovering a handsome man whose body was not too burly, not scrawny. He was good-looking, through and through. A young man with sword-shaped brows, a straight posture, and an uncommon demeanor looked coldly at Zhong. It was he who had spoken. Zhong shot that handsome young teen a cold glance and retorted, "And who are you?" Before asking someone else's name, don't you have to announce your own name first? Don't you even know these basic manners? Chapter 8:15. Choosing a Consort. Chapter 8:15. Choosing a Consort. Hearing Zhong's words, the handsome youth was taken aback. 6 guards beside him immediately stepped forward, barking furiously at Zhong. "Impudent! This is the young master of the Rokujo clan, His Highness Rokujo Baikoma. He is set to be the main king of the queen. You dare to be disrespectful. Do you seek death?" After they shouted, Rokujo Baikoma's eyes regained their original prideful gaze. "King!" Zhong's mouth twitched before looking at the handsome youth again, a sense of ridicule in his mind. Zhong tried asking, "Don't tell me you are all about to become the queen's consorts, are you?" One of them glared disdainfully at Zhong. "Ignorant fool, I don't understand how such an ugly man like you can actually be here. This is the place where the queen gathers her consorts. Those that can truly match the queen, only number 4. The rest are all her toys. The position of a concubine compared to us toys are very different." Among the many handsome men in this huge temple, Zhong was truly insignificant in terms of looks. In truth, he might be considered decent among most other ordinary guys, but compared to all these pretty boys, he was lacking in the looks department. Zhong looked at the number of pretty men here and laughed lightly. And to think that the saying was that all men are not good. When women are in power, aren't they the same? Both genders were biological creatures and had similar needs. The Empress Dowager of the Qin dynasty was a woman of many faces, controlling behind the scenes, her authority absolute. In modern society, rich women would also play around with toy boys, otherwise there would not be an industry of gigolos as well. When he thought of that overbearing and charming Luo Qing possessing so many men, Zhong felt pity. Although she was beautiful and had an otherworldly charm to her, she was not his type after all. The expression of one of the youths turned ugly, his muscles turning taut as he glared at Zhong and stepped forward. "What did you say? Are you insulting Her Majesty? Seems like you require a beating. I will teach you the manners of this palace." Zhong shot him a disdainful look, turning around and speaking icily. just based on you? Train another few hundred years, sissy." The youth trembled with rage when scolded like that. He tapped his foot and charged towards Zhong with an 8 times speed, his pale fist blasting towards Zhong's head. "Watch my fist." Wow, Zheng Guanxi's speed is so fast. Truly astounding. He already has the strength comparable to a warrior. Powerful, handsome, and strong. Seems like he's going to be a strong contender for the position of king. As a majority of the youths were looking at Zheng Guanxi, their eyes were filled with a solemn look. Although they were all good-looking, most of them only had the physique that was twice as powerful as ordinary people. As someone with 8 times that, Zheng Guanxi was already an impressive fighter. Too weak, Zhong sat on a chair, eyeing Zheng Guanxi, who was rushing towards him, and sent a casual slap across his chest. Pump! Following a loud sound, Zheng Guanxi was sent hurtling into the other side of the temple, spitting out a large amount of blood as he crumpled to the floor. Seeing this, all the youths had huge changes in their expressions. They could not help but retreat a few steps, eyeing Zhong with fear and trepidation. No one was willing to go help Zheng Guanxi up. Zheng Guanxi was good-looking and had decent fighting capabilities. He was slated to be one of the forerunners for the position of king. Hence, no one was willing to help save him. In fact, if he died, they would be happier. The Queen, Her Majesty, arrives. Following a resounding announcement by a female warrior, 16 warriors wrapped in the green storm battle armor came escorting 2 extremely beautiful women into the temple palace. "We greet your majesty." All the handsome youths immediately got down on their knees and lowered their heads, their eyes filled with expectation and desire. Only Zhong continued to sit one side, eyeing everything going on with mild interest. Under the protection of the 16 storm warriors, the 2 absolute beauties sat on 2 imperial thrones. Zhong gazed towards the 2, noticing one was the charismatic yet arrogant storm queen, Luo Qingqing. Her visage was cold yet filled with an attractive charm and confidence. The other person was also a beautiful woman who was decked in white fox hide, her skin fair, her features like something out of a painting. Her figure was petite, and she exuded a graceful and holy charm. At this time, Luo Qingqing's shape gaze fell upon Zhong. Her single glance was enough to cause goosebumps on Zhong's skin. He could sense her confidence and oppressive aura, exceeding even that of his own, strong. This woman is a true top expert. Zhong had only been an ordinary university student before the apocalypse. After countless battles and struggles, he managed to get to where he was at. The period of time was barely over a year or so, and although he was already starting to possess the bearing of a ruler, it was still nothing compared to Luo Qingqing, who obviously had ruled for more than a dozen years. The pretty girl beside Luo Qingqing also eyed Zhong, her eyes filled with a curious gaze. Luo Qingqing gazed at Zhong for some time, before asking sharply, "You're the leader of the Vulture Valley, Zhong?" Zhong responded without arrogance nor subservience. "That's right, Luo Qingqing. I'm Zhong." "Zhong? Who's that?" The numerous kneeling men began to wonder in their hearts. They finally understood that this man was different from them. Seated on her throne, Luo Qingqing's eyes flashed, and without a sound, she suddenly dashed towards Zhong with a powerful fist. Since her speed was fast, the booming sound of her speed breaking the sound barrier, combined with the oppressive pressure she was exuding, formed into a powerful intent on blasting Zhong to pieces. Even a peak-type 3 divine warrior would be unable to get up and evade. All around her, other than Rokujo Baikoma, the rest of the handsome men felt an intense pressure crushing them. They found it hard to breathe. Zhong's pupils narrowed, his right fist enveloped with dark dough chi as it slammed out against the incoming shockwave, dispersing the force. That single fist broke through Luo Qingqing's intent, but Zhong was shocked inwardly. This woman is strong. She's like already half-step into the Type 5 realm, and might be able to break through any time. The corners of Luo Qingqing's mouth curled slightly, revealing a satisfied smile. Not bad. To be able to receive my fist, you're definitely a Type 4 Divine Warrior. Even if you're not Zhong, you have the capability to stand before me. On account of your strength, you're in line to become my king. Work hard." Hearing those words, the many handsome men kneeling began to show expressions of envy and jealousy. These people could fight their whole lives only to attain a toy boy status, whereas Zhong had immediately gained a position to fight for the king's seat. They were naturally envious. Zhong was taken aback, as he frowned slightly. "Luo Qing, I had no intentions of becoming your king. I'm here this time to discuss purchasing some of the prehistoric texts you have." Luo Qing was definitely a top beauty with an otherworldly charm. However, Zhong did not want to share her with 100 other men. Luo Qing's countenance turned extremely frosty as fury erupted in her eyes. "Are you trying to make a fool out of me? This is the 100 Herb Temple where the contenders for the king's position stay. You came in here willingly, and now you're trying to back out? Deserving of death." Zhong was inwardly shocked as his brow furrowed deeper, a sense of unease rising in his heart. "Willingly become your king. Audacious, you dare to take her majesty for a fool." At this time, Yinglan, who had been standing quietly by Luo Qing's side, charged out like a storm, thrusting her spear towards Zhong. Powered by the storm armor, Yinglan broke past her Type 3 Divine Warrior strength, reaching the initial level of Type 4. The mysterious array behind her glowed and dimmed erratically as a powerful gust of wind blew, giving her the appearance of an enraged killing goddess. "She's really trying to kill me." Zhong could sense the killing intent from Yinglan, and his caution was pushed to the extreme. Activating his shadow steps, his body twisted as he brought his right fist enveloped with devil flames to smash towards her chest without any mercy. Yinglan was also an experienced fighter. Under such circumstances, she managed to twist slightly, evading the sure kill, but Zhong's fist managed to land on her body, which sent her shooting into a wall as she spat out large amounts of blood. Luo Qing's eyes turned red with fury as she disappeared from her seat. "Audacious! You dare to injure my people in my Imperial city. I condemn you to death." Chapter 8:16 Abnormal Change. Chapter 8:16 Abnormal Change. With a terrible hurricane blowing behind her, Luo Qing suddenly appeared in front of Zhong, both fists blasting towards Zhong. "Bastard!" Zhong's eyes flashed with anger, his dark qi channeling. He activated his shadow steps, the flame blade in his hands slashing towards Luo Qing with the speed of sound. The flame blade slashed through Luo Qing's body a meteor, cleaving her in half. "Not good, it's a clone." His abundant combat experience felt a light tap on his blade, and expecting the next move, he twisted his body and leaped to the side. A long leg suddenly lashed out from behind him, aiming for his waist with a powerful kick. Plunk! Zhong was slammed heavily in the waist, his entire body flying towards the wall on the other side. His second-order body of steel groaned, a few bones cracking. If it had been him when he had just entered this world, he would have been incapacitated. Having gained the upper hand, Luo Qing transformed into a blur, unleashing a flurry of blows on him. Zhong was after all an evolver with plenty of combat experience. Facing Luo Qing's aggressive blows, he was completely at a disadvantage and was like a small boat that could capsize in this torrential storm. However, he held on firmly and did not allow her to deal any devastating blows. "This damn woman is truly strong." Punk! Following a loud boom, Zhong was sent slamming into a wall, his internal qi and blood in turmoil. Unable to help it, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Luo Qing was aggressive and did not let up on her enemies. She continued to charge at Zhong and rain blows down on him. After defending against a flurry of blows, Zhong was once again slammed in his chest, being sent flying towards the distance. Her Majesty is victorious. Her Majesty is victorious. Her Majesty is invincible. The various pretty men began to cheer out in excitement, gazing at Luo Qingqing and admiring her valiantness. Such a character, even on Earth, before the apocalypse, would definitely gain the admiration and attraction of countless men. To the men of Storm Valley, Luo Qingqing was such a character worthy of their respect and admiration. The handsome Rokujo Baikoma looked at Luo Qingqing with a strange gaze. Zhong spat another mouthful of blood, his body riddled with injuries, as he stared gravely at Luo Qingqing. In a fair battle, just comparing our physique, although I hate to admit it, I'm truly not a match for her. Evolving to the peak of Type 4 Divine Warrior, Zhong's physique was already at a level where it was hard to find opponents. Today, he was actually bested by a lady, causing him to feel unwilling. After all, he was a male chauvinist to a certain extent. The feeling quickly faded, replaced by an irrepressible killing intent. I guess I can only use other methods to kill her. If need be, I'll just summon Mount Tai to come and tear this whole place apart. He was someone who had trawled through a mountain of zombies and corpses. In the earlier duel, he had lost his cool in a moment of anger. However, he quickly regained his calm and would choose the most optimal method of dealing with his enemies. Just as he was preparing to activate his other abilities, the overbearing Luo Qingqing charged right in front of him, when suddenly her face turned pale and she seemed to falter slightly. Zhong's exceptional ability caught that moment of weakness, and he brought his fist encased with dark Do Qi to slam in her abdomen, sending her shooting towards the crowd of people. As a thought flashed past his mind, good chance. Seeing the fall of their leader, the men all had changes in expressions as they scrambled for cover. "Your Majesty, let me help you." Right at this time, the handsome Rokujo Baikoma stepped forward, his face full of concern. The pale Luo Qingqing barked, "Rokujo, stand down." Rokujo Baikoma seemed not to have noticed her words, choosing to continue his dash forward. In order to avoid injuring him, Luo Qingqing retracted her aura. At that moment, the corners of Rokujo Baikoma's mouth curled, revealing a smug expression. His right hand suddenly flashed with a white light, piercing towards Luo Qingqing. Luo Qingqing had let down her guard around the person most likely to be her future king, and thus was sent flying a second time by the white light, her chest penetrated. At the same time, the little beauty seated in the other Imperial throne suddenly burst forth with multiple palm strikes, blasting towards the Storm Warriors beside her. Caught unprepared, all 16 members of the Storm Warriors in their green storm armor were killed instantly. After dealing with Luo Qingqing, Rokujo Baikoma slapped his hands together, and a number of strings within the entire hall appeared. Within a breath, the hundreds of beautiful men were all sliced up into multiple pieces, fresh blood dyeing the floor red. Zhong watched this sudden abnormal turn of events and frowned, retreating a few steps, his body taut. He was aware that he had just been embroiled in a coup de grace. Luo Qingqing's chest had been pierced by a laser blade, blood flowing out the corner of her mouth. She eyed the beauty in the other chair with disbelief, asking, "It's you, Mei'er. Why did you betray me?" Mei'er smiled alluringly. "We didn't expect this, did you? Big Sister Luo, your trusted little sister, your future king, and your most trusted aide would all betray you. Doesn't it feel good?" Lan, who had been sent flying in the wall earlier by Zhong, leaped up and came to Meier's side, staring coldly at Luo Qingqing. Luo Qingqing stared at the three of them, a stabbing pain in her heart. Why? Why? I have never mistreated you guys. Why betray me? Chapter 817, The Oriole Behind. Chapter 817, The Oriole Behind. Meier's face contorted as she shouted, "Sis, the entire Storm Valley has been under my management. What have you done? You're just someone stronger and have been entrusted by our great mother. That was how you became Storm Queen. What other qualifications do you have to receive the love and admiration of our people, while I have to remain beneath you? In terms of strength, yes, I'm just initial Type 4 Divine Warrior, and can't compare to you. But in everything else, I'm far above you. The entire Storm Valley has been managed well in my hands. You have no right to be queen. I should be the ruler of Storm Valley, the true queen of Storm Valley. As to your future king, Rikudo Baikoma, he has long since gotten tired of you, who don't understand men at all. Mei'er smiled, stretching out her leg towards Rikudo Baikoma. Many thanks, queen. Rikudo Baikoma licked his lips as a look of passionate desire appeared in his eyes. He lowered his head and started licking her legs in a perverse manner, obviously a sign of his fetish. Luo Qing gasped for breath as she stared at Inglan of the Eight Greats, asking, "What about you? Inglan, why you as well?" Inglan's eyes flashed with an apologetic look before she gritted her teeth and said, "My apologies, your majesty. I'd always been a spy sent from the Pterosaur Mountain. My real name is not Inglan, but Zheng. I'm thankful for your trust and high regard, but I cannot betray the orders of Pterosaur Mountain." Luo Qing was shocked, and she stared at Mei'er. "You actually colluded with Pterosaur Mountain. No wonder you dare to act against me. Zheng and Dao Gu aren't easily satiated wolves. What conditions did you promise them?" Mei'er seemed to become excited as she grinned sadistically. "My dear sister, I did not promise them much, only that after this, I will send you to them with your abilities wasted. They will love you dearly, sister. Those men that you hate over there will love you truly well." The ex-queen of Storm Valley, Luo Qing's countenance turned pale. The two leaders of Pterosaur Mountain were widely renowned perverts. If she landed in their arms, she will lead a fate worse than a prostitute. When she had gained control of Storm Valley, she had offended them and the Sun Alliance on multiple occasions. Her future would truly be murky once she ended up there. Mei'er laughed out loud with a contorted expression. "Ha ha! Ha! Sister, I know that there are many Storm Warriors loyal to you. Once you're sent there, those die-hard, loyal subordinates of yours will be sent together. You will all become the toys of those stinking men there. That'll be so interesting. Ha! Ha!" Mei'er had been suppressed by Luo Qing for countless years, having to act as a loyal princess. Her innate twisted personality was now unleashed for all to see, finally free from suppression. What ugliness! Zhong thought coldly as he looked at Mei'er. Although this woman had beauty, her current expression was truly twisted. Her excitement was revolting to Zhong and could not compare to Willianna's cuteness. Luo Qing turned to Zhong and spoke. "Zhong, you heard it all. It was a misunderstanding between us. Join hands with me. Let's kill these traitors together. I can grant you 20 storm battle armors." Zhong laughed coldly, retreating 2 steps. "Why should I? You're the defeated right now. Furthermore, you were the one who attacked without checking facts." Zhong eyed Mei'er and spoke coldly. "Mei'er, I came here this time to get the prehistoric tech of your Storm Valley. As long as you give them to me, I can forget about you plotting against me. Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens next." Prehistoric tech? You truly like to daydream, eh? Why don't you take a good look at who this is? Mei'er laughed lightly before clapping her hands. 2 burly men dragged in Willianna, who was tied up tightly. Willianna stared at Mei'er with rage, but when she saw Luo Qing, who had been injured gravely, as well as Zhong, her eyes flashed with shock. Mei'er laughed out before throwing out an extremely attractive proposal. "Do you see that? That's your woman, Willianna. Zhong, if you wait there obediently after I'm done, I can return her to you. At the same time, before handing the Storm Queen over, I can let you play with her for a few days. Every single one of her Storm Warriors are beauties. I can give 1/3 to you. How about that?" Luo Qing was a top-notch beauty that had an incredible demeanor and valiant aura. To be able to toy with a queen like that, it was truly a form of allure to most men. Zhong's brows arched, and he was about to say something when suddenly, something else happened. Rikudo Baikoma, who was still licking Mei'er's legs, suddenly waved his right hand, his eyes flashing with a cold light as a white light shot towards Mei'er's chest. Stinking man, you truly are a disloyal, blind wolf. Did you think I would not be wary of you? Mei'er's eyes flashed coldly, as a tornado formed in her right hand, slamming into the white light, slapping the dagger away. She then kicked out viciously, her powerful strength exploding out and slamming into Rokudo Baikuma's body, sending him flying into a wall. The two men who were grabbing Willianna suddenly exploded forth, one of them glowing with a gray color. A powerful force blasted outwards, his fist slamming towards Mei'er viciously. Zheng, it is you! Without time to defend, Mei'er could only lift up her jade-like hand to slap the incoming fist. With a burst of might, Zheng's superior strength sent Mei'er flying. The other person appeared noiselessly behind Mei'er, throwing a punch without caring that she was a girl. The terrifying strength exploded out, slamming into Mei'er as she crashed towards the floor like a pitiful animal, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The expert behind her flipped his hands, causing a number of vines to appear, piercing into Mei'er's body as they begun to absorb her essence. Mei'er let out a scream of agony, eyeing Zheng and Dao Ge beside her with hatred. Zheng, Dao Ge, it actually is you too. You dare to go back on your word and attack me? Why? Aren't you afraid of being mocked? The burly and handsome Zheng caressed Mei'er's chin with a mocking look. Stupid fool. My interest in Luo Qing is real, but I'm also interested in you. The 8 storm greats as well. All you women are just prey to me. How dare you pray discuss equality with me? Overstepping your limits. The man with golden hair who had injured Mei'er in one hit and was absorbing her essence through his vines chuckled menacingly. Zheng, Mei'er is yours. I want Luo Qing. Zheng chuckled back. I too want to play with this proud woman. What do we do? Dao Ji's eyes flashed with a lustful light. All right, I'll toy with her for a month before giving her to you. However, you must also let me have Mei'er afterward. I love playing around with these stupid women with their essence and life force all sucked out. At this time, Rokudo Baikuma, who had been sent flying, wiped his mouth, walking in front of Zheng. Dino King, I've already settled these 2 women as per our agreement. You guys have to uphold your end, yes? Zheng smiled lightly. Of course. As per our agreement, all the men and a quarter of the women in Storm Valley will belong to you. You will become the new Storm King. A look of joy came over Rokudo Baikuma's face as he kneeled. Thank you, your majesty. From today on, the Rokudo family will forever be loyal to you and serve you with all we have until the end of our days. After that, he stood up, glancing at Mei'er and Luo Qing with disdain. The 2 queens, the men of the Rokudo family, are not your toys. This is a world of men. You women are only fit to be our toys. The 2 of them stared at Rokudo Baikuma with hatred. However, one of them was injured, the other attacked by surprise, and was even pierced by mutant vines. Both of them weren't a match for Zheng or Dao Ge. Zheng stepped on Mei'er's stomach, causing her to spit out another mouthful of blood. He then turned to Zhong. You must be Zhong? How about joining us? The promises these bitches made earlier, we can fulfill them. To these overlords, women were just toys and decorative ornaments. They sought power and authority. Zhong hesitated for a while before speaking. I want prehistoric tech of both Pterosaur Mountain and Storm Valley. I want this Imperial city as well as that woman. Give me all of these, and I can pretend to overlook all of these. He did not hold either Mei'er or Luo Qing in high regards. Compared to them, he preferred the tech of both factions. Dao Ji's expression sunk. Zhong, don't ask for a mile when given an inch. Even if you're type 4 divine warrior, there are 2 of us here. If you want to provoke us, don't think about leaving here alive. Chapter 8:18. Zhong's True Strength. Chapter 8:18. Zhong's True Strength. Luo Qing's eyes flashed with a strange glint as she barked. Zhong, they are shepherds commissioned by the Dino-people to raise other humans as cattle. Once they destroy our Storm Valley, the millions of humans in Green Region will become the food for the Dino-people. You Zhong, if you still have any conscience, help me kill them together. Zhen's eyes flashed coldly, shooting towards Luo Qing with a vicious expression as he slapped her. Bitch, you speak too much. Luo Qing's eyes flashed with fury as her body twitched and she spat out blood once more, trying to support herself up. As Zheng prepared to slap her once more, a huge hand stopped him. Zheng's pupils narrowed as his face turned dark and he stared at Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong, are you intending to go against us? Yu Zhong eyed Zheng before speaking indifferently. Luo Qing, if I were to help your Storm Valley out of this, how do you intend to repay me? Luo Qing stared at Yu Zhong warily. What do you want? Even in this dangerous situation, she did not want to promise anything without thinking it through. If Yu Zhong wanted her to be a slave for her whole life, she would rather die. Yu Zhong quickly spoke of his conditions. Your Storm Valley tech, this Imperial city, as well as your forces to help me deal with Pterosaur Mountain. After annihilating them, I want their tech. Oh yes, Willianna is my woman. You can choose to let her come with me. If she does decide to stay, you must promote her and ensure her safety. Such a proud woman like Luo Qing would definitely agree to be Yu Zhong's slave. He was not interested in her as well, thus he did not ask for such a condition. She was after all a decisive warlord. Although his conditions were harsh, she made her decision in a second. Fine, I promise you. Kill him. Zheng barked out ominously. With a tap of his foot, he shot towards Yu Zhong with a gray glow on his back. Dao simply kicked Mei'er to one side before his body flashed and he disappeared from his location. Inglan, or Zheng, who was standing beside Zheng, charged forth at Yu Zhong, her storm armor glowing brightly, as she thrust her spear towards Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong's pupils narrowed as he unleashed his art of fear, causing a powerful spirit wave to spread out. When that terrifying ability slammed into Zheng and Dao, there did not seem to be any effect. However, for Zheng, her entire body trembled. The second-order art of fear combined with Yu Zhong's high spirit. Even though it was unable to shock the Type 3 Divine Warrior Zheng, it was enough to shake her out of her wits for a moment. At that moment, a void appeared in midair, and 10 sharp bone spikes shot out, targeting the three of them. Zheng sent out a punch, his right fist enveloped in a gray battle armor, causing the bone spike to shatter upon contact. Dao's body flashed, causing the 3 bone spikes to brush past the shadow of his image. Zheng managed to recover from the momentarily stun, but by then, the 3 bone spikes were dangerously close. She screamed out, "Father, save me!" However, a scene that caused her to despair unfolded, as Zheng ignored her pleas, instead, appearing in front of Yu Zhong with a cold glare, sending out a fist towards his heart. Zheng's body twisted, as she tried her best to evade the one closest. However, the remaining 2 pierced towards her heart and right chest. Dang! With a loud impact, white bone spikes were unable to pierce through her storm armor. However, the powerful impact was enough to shake her heart, causing her to be sent flying. White bones appeared out of thin air, its body firing countless bone spikes towards Zheng. She had just been struck in her heart, and her blood flow was in turmoil. With the protection and enhancement of the storm armor, she was able to reach the Type 4 Divine Warrior stage, surpassing white bones. However, she was still being suppressed by it. On the other side, Zheng had appeared in front of Yu Zhong mysteriously, his right fist covered in a gray light as he punched towards Yu Zhong. With a thought, Yu Zhong activated his gravity manipulation, causing a powerful gravitational field to envelop his surroundings. Zheng and Dao were both affected by the 8 times gravitational force, their bodies sinking and their speed reduced drastically. A cold light flashed in Yu Zhong's eyes as he shot past Zheng. Fool! Zheng waved his right fist and sent a fist at the speed of sound towards Yu Zhong. Luo Qing, who was still trembling on the ground, shouted, "Careful!" A powerful sense of danger welled up in Zhong's mind. The right fist of Zheng was obviously unable to threaten him. It should not even be able to touch him. However, his danger perception had saved him countless times. He twisted his body at the first instant, leaping to one side. A gray light suddenly shot out of Zheng's right hand, brushing past Zhong's chest, leaving behind a deep scar. It managed to brush past the Type 4 mutant beast hide, the level 5 defense vest, causing Zhong's bones to be seen. Had he been slower, he would have been cleaved in two. He dodged it? What a terrifying reactive ability. Zheng stared at Zhong with a solemn gaze. This strike of his was able to tear most other Type 4 divine warriors in two. Daoge had appeared behind Zhong silently, a sharp dagger in his hands slashing towards Zhong's heart. With the dark Do Chi powering his body, Zhong pulled out his flame blade and slashed backward, accurately deflecting the dagger, before he sent out a kick at the speed of sound to slam into Daoge's chest, sending him flying into a wall. After Daoge was sent flying away, Zheng appeared in front of Zhong, punching out once more. Zhong shot forwards, bringing his flame blade down like a meteor. No matter how tough a human's body was, it could not deflect the claw of a Type 4 mutant beast. All of a sudden, a gray light burst out from Zheng's fist, slamming into the flame blade, knocking it away forcefully. The flame blade was knocked away, and Zheng saw Zhong abandoning it, dashing in front of him, and punching his chest. He was sent flying into another wall. Zhong laughed lightly. Weak? The Pterosaur King and Tyrannosaur King of Pterosaur Mountain are truly too weak. Zheng and Daoge were both Type 4 experts, relying on their own Pterosaur battle armor to reach the peak of the Type 4 stage, but their combat abilities were basically trash compared to Luo Qingqing. Zhong could easily suppress the two of them through combat alone. Obviously, the two of them had reached their levels by relying on the blood honey. They had not gotten better through countless battles, taking one step at a time to reach the top. In the past, they had used their might to suppress the enemies, which did not count for much. When meeting an opponent of the same level, their weakness and experience was immediately obvious. Luo Qingqing, who was still on the ground, gasping for breath, looked at how easily Zhong had subdued the two Type 4 experts of Pterosaur Mountain and was filled with shock. Strong. So he was actually holding back when battling me earlier. I'm not playing anymore. Turn into ash for me. After defeating the two of them, with a tap of his foot, he appeared beside Daoge, his right hand ablaze with devil flames as he grabbed his head. At that instant, the terrifying devil flames entered his body, erupting forcefully from within, turning him into a flaming person. Daoge began screaming in misery while struggling. However, within seconds, he was turned into a pile of ash, leaving behind the gray pterosaur battle armor. An unseen life force was absorbed into Zhong's body through the god and devil imprint. Strong. What a terrifying fellow. Is that his true strength? Seeing Zhong take down the two leaders of Pterosaur Mountain and the Tyrannosaur King, Daoge being incinerated in a flash, other than Luo Qingqing, everyone else was shocked beyond words. Especially the handsome Rokudo Baikoma, who was now pale and his body trembled. If Zhong managed to succeed and saved Luo Qingqing, his fate as a traitor would definitely be unimaginable. Zheng's gaze shrunk as the gray color power in him began to emit out with more force. It turned into an energy that coursed through him, enlarging his muscles, and his face contorted. He suddenly broke through the Type 5 Divine Warrior realm, and a huge force burst out with him as the center, distorting even the air around him. Chapter 819, Slaughtering Zheng. Chapter 819, Slaughtering Zheng. Zheng's eyes flashed with a strange light as he tried to coax Zhong once more. Join me. As long as you join me, Luo Qingqing, Mei'er, they can all belong to you. I'll give you half the women of Storm Valley, and we can become partners to rule Green Region. How about it? Zheng was filled with wariness and caution towards Zhong. If he could get Zhong on his side by splitting the rewards instead of fighting, it would be a better outcome. With Dao Ji's death, it was not a bad thing, as now, the entire pterosaur mountain was his to command. Sorry, I'm not interested in dogs of the Dino-people. Zhong summoned his dark Do Chi, and his entire body was wrapped in it as he shot towards Zheng. In a breath, he had already appeared in front of him, his blade covered in devil flames as it swung down. Zheng roared out in rage as the power in him surged. He slapped out with his palm as a sharp beam of gray light shot out towards Zhong. Zhong's expression fell. He swung the flame blade out at the gray light, forcefully shattering it. As the few beams of light were destroyed by Zhong, he was forced back a dozen meters, his right hand numb. There were traces of blood on his chest and shoulder. In the end, he was unable to fully deal with the gray light. Zhong gazed at Zheng solemnly. A Type 5 Divine Warrior is truly terrifying, even if it's a lousy one. The power can threaten my life. At the peak of Type 4 Divine Warrior, Zheng was suppressed by Zhong. However, with the power of the pterosaur battle armor, he was able to push his limits to the Type 5 realm, injuring Zhong with a single fist. Ha ha ha! Zhong, since you aren't willing to be a dog, you can go to hell. Zheng's eyes turned bloodshot as his muscles went taut. With a single step, his strength was enough to create a ditch in the ground. Burrowing the power of the suit, he rushed up right in front of Zhong, punching out with a force that could tear a tank into shreds. Zhong tapped his foot and retreated explosively, appearing behind Zheng, sending a punch towards her chest. Zheng was currently embroiled with white bones and was not prepared for Zhong's sneak attack. She could watch wide-eyed as Zhong's fist slammed in her chest, the terrifying strength sending her into a wall. White Bone's fiery demonic eyes shone, shooting in front of her as it sent multiple bone spikes into her. Having lost her weapons, Zheng could only make use of her hands to break apart those bone spikes. However, countless more slammed into her, the force from the attacks bypassing her armor and shaking her internal organs up. Mei'er, who was still on the floor, covered in vines, pleaded, "Save me! Burn these vines away! I can lend you a hand." By this time, Mei'er's strength was ebbing away by the blood-sucking vine. She was now powerless and defenseless, but it could not change the fact that she was still a Type 4 Divine Warrior. Zhong glanced at her, without any intention of caring. This woman was vicious and cunning, seeking only her own interests. If he were to save her, she might not even help him, instead choosing to run. After all, she had an enmity with Luo Qing, and if Zhong wanted to get the support of the entire Storm Valley, he would need Luo Qing. Die! 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 Zheng's eyes were bloodshot and his expression savage, his entire body looking ready to burst. He was like an enraged beast, the floor beneath his feet shattering with every step he took. In an instant, Zheng appeared in front of Zhong, his face cruel, his right hand blasting towards Zhong with sharp, gray beams. The sharp gray lights caused Zhong to be torn apart, dissipating into dust. Behind the crumbling Zhong, his real body appeared suddenly, his blade covered in devil flames, slashing toward Zheng. Zheng had celebrated inwardly when he thought he had crushed Zhong, since he had borrowed the suit to enhance his realm to the Type 5 level. While he was filled with power, in exchange, his perception and reaction had been affected due to the pain. Therefore, he had not discovered that the one he had killed was Zhong's clone. Facing Zhong's sudden strike, shock filled Zheng's eyes as he roared out in rage, the bright and sharp gray light bursting out from his body. The radiance was too sudden, and Zhong quickly reacted by enforcing the flame blade with dark Do Chi, causing the bright light to shatter. Strong. A Type 5 Divine Warrior is truly a different stage compared to the Type 4 Divine Warriors. As Zhong slashed up the light, he was also forced back dozens of meters his body riddled with new wounds. Zheng was like a demon right now, not intending to give Zhong any space to breathe. With a flash of his body, he appeared right in front of Zhong, bringing countless gray light towards Zhong. Zhong had no choice but to retreat further, waving the flame blade in front of him as he channeled the dark dough qi through his body, shattering the gray light. Zheng's radiance was like an endless source of power, thundering down on Zhong without any stop. Every single beam could cause a peak-type 4 divine warrior to be killed. Zhong felt like a boat out on the stormy seas, being buffeted continuously with no means of counterattack, only defending as hard as he could. However, from time to time, some of the beams would manage to leave injuries on him. The intense battle continued for another 5 minutes when suddenly, Zheng let out a scream. The blood vessels in his body burst apart, as blood flowed everywhere, looking extremely horrifying. Zheng's true strength had only been at the initial Type 4 realm. He had no means of maintaining the Type 5 for long. Forcefully pushing it only caused him backlash if he could not deal with his enemy in time. Seizing that chance, Zhong shot forwards, swinging his blade and decapitating Zheng in one swift motion. In a shower of blood, Zheng's headless corpse slumped to the ground, while his life force was absorbed by Zhong. Zhong glanced at the corpse and thought quietly, a Type 5 is truly strong. Even someone as trashy as him was almost able to kill me. Seems like to deal with a true powerhouse, with my current strength, I will still need the sun armor. Zhong had continued to drag out the fight in order to test his capabilities against a Type 5 divine warrior. After this battle, he had finally ascertained that the gap between him and a true Type 5 divine warrior was still large. After all, most other races had physiques much stronger than humans, be it the flesh-eaters, vampires, or Dino-people. They were all freaks and monsters among similar ranks. They were able to suppress humans entirely. Zhong was already pushed to his limits when dealing with a single Type 5 Zheng. Against other true Type 5 divine warriors, it would spell death if he did not use the sun armor. Luo Qing watched Zhong kill Zheng and heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, she eyed Zhong warily. After all, she knew just how vicious and merciless a leader could be to his or her enemies. She would not be naive to assume that Zhong was some saint. After all, within this temple, only Mei'er and she had the ability to contend with Zhong. If he were to go back on his word, then the two beauties would be at his mercy. Zhong gazed at the half-kneeling Luo Qing and spoke softly. Luo Qing, will you honor our agreement? A resolute look flashed past her eyes. Of course, my words have always been worth its weight in gold. Zhong asked, what were you poisoned with? Her expression was one of being fatally poisoned. Otherwise, with her Type 4 divine warrior strength, most simple toxins would have been forced out by her. Mei'er suddenly quipped, she's been afflicted with a myriad of toxins. It's a special concoction by me made of 7 different types of mutant plants. There's only me in the whole wide world that knows how to detoxify it. Zhong, as long as you help me deal with this damnable blood-sucking vine, I'm willing to become your woman and help you control Storm Valley. This woman, I can gift her to you as a toy. She's the Storm Queen, after all, if you could dominate her. How exciting it would be. Zhong's eyes flashed with a strange glint, and he turned to look at Luo Qing in an unbridled manner, a teasing smile on his face. Luo Qing, Mei'er intends to give me the whole Storm Valley. What about you? Luo Qing met his gaze without fear, her eyes one of resolution. I can only give you what I promised. If you want me to submit, you will only gain a dead body. Good. Zhong laughed lightly, coming to Mei'er and speaking coldly. Hand over the antidote. Her heart turned cold, knowing Zhong's choice. The hot look in her eyes faded away, as she turned to look at Luo Qing with hatred and schadenfreude. Luo Qing, you may have one today. However, the 7-mix poison has no antidote. Even with all your abilities, you will have no way of recovering from this. You will become an ordinary person with no strength. I want to see how you will continue to rule Storm Valley. Chapter 820. Subjugating Mei'er. Chapter 820. Subjugating Mei'er. Luo Qing turned pale upon hearing those words. However, she recovered quickly. Mei'er, even if I've lost my strength, it doesn't matter. Even if I can't stay as the Storm Queen of Storm Valley, I will still do my utmost for the Sisters of Storm Valley. Mei'er looked Luo Qing, who still seemed so sure of herself, as though the loss of strength did not affect her, and her own eyes flashed with shame, and she closed her eyes, keeping quiet. 7 mixed poison? Zhong laughed lightly, before turning to Luo Qing. If I can help you absolve your poison, what would you do to repay me? Luo Qing's eyes brightened, a flicker of hope flashing by. To an expert, losing their strength was a nightmare. If she could gain back her strength, she was willing to pay a high price. She fell silent before replying. 5 Type 4 nuclei, 10 Storm Battle Armor. 5 Type 4 nuclei and 10 Storm Battle Armors were a huge price, as long as one enough Type 3 Divine Warrior Expert. Making use of the Storm Battle Armor would grant Zhong 5 Type 4 warriors. Zhong responded firmly, no, I want the Storm 8 Greats. As long as you hand them over, I will cure your poison. The Storm 8 Greats were the most outstanding female generals of the Storm Valley, each one of them at the peak of Type 3 Divine Warrior. On top of that, each of them had powerful, unique abilities. If he could gain their wholehearted help, he could expand his faction much faster. Zhong had obtained a whole lot of treasures from the Sun Alliance treasury, but he lacked human talents. While the Storm 8 Greats could not compare with Luo Qing, they were still powerful experts. Zhong naturally hoped to obtain their help. Luo Qing immediately emitted a frosty aura as she stared coldly at Zhong. No, I refuse. I cannot send them to you just for my own benefits. They're my friends and subordinates, not some gifts to be sent away. Even if I were to be a cripple my whole life, I will not betray my friends and subordinates. Zhong eyed the resolute and upright Luo Qing, his eyes flashing with appreciation. She was not just a warlord. If it had been anyone else, in order to regain their strength, they would give up anything. Your Majesty, what's going on? Right at this moment, a lady with blonde hair and blue eyes, and an incredible body to boot came rushing in. She was wearing a green Storm Battle Armor, obviously one of the Storm 8 Greats. She was Hai-Shi, and she had brought 16 other female warriors as they rushed in. Hai-Shi caught sight of the tragic scene in the temple. Her heart turned cold. She wielded her battle spear and came in front of her, eyeing Zhong dangerously. The 16 other female warriors also raised their weapons, ready to attack. Luo Qing spoke up solemnly. Stop, Hai-Shi. This is Zhong, the leader of the Vulture Valley. He's not our enemy. Mei'er had colluded with Pterosaur Mountain to bring their people in to incite a rebellion. Zhong had acted to foil their plans. He's our friend. Having seen Zhong's strength, Luo Qing knew clearly that unless all the Storm 8 Greats worked together, they would not be able to defeat him. Even if they could defeat him, it would be impossible to kill him. She did not want to make an enemy out of such a character. Since you're already safe, I'll be making my move. Don't forget our agreement. Zhong chuckled before lifting the incapacitated Mei'er and heavily injured Zheng with one hand while hoisting Willianna with the other, as he made his way out of the Imperial city. Luo Qing frowned at Mei'er before ordering one of the Storm Warriors, Annie, go bring Zhong to a guest room for a good rest. Yes, Annie responded, before hurrying after Zhong. Zhong and the rest left, while Luo Qing's icy gaze landed on Rokuto Baikoma. His face was currently devoid of color as he crawled towards Luo Qing. Your Majesty. I lost my mind. Your Majesty, I was forced. Yes, I was forced. Your Majesty. It was Zheng and Mei'er who forced me. They forced me. I love you. Your Majesty. I love only you. Your Majesty. This man and Zhong are truly worlds apart. Luo Qing's eyes flashed with disgust as she ordered mercilessly. Haishi, kill him. Pass my command. All of the Rokudo family will be slaves from now on. Yes. The gallant Haishi dashed forward, her spear thrusting towards Rokudo Baikoma's neck, instantly decapitating him. Seeing the head of Rokudo Baikoma soaring through the air, his expression one of shock, the few storm warriors beside Luo Qing felt pity. Rokudo Baikoma was good-looking, and few men could compare to him. The women also liked good-looking guys. Seeing such a looker being killed, they could not help but feel regret. After all, he was considered a Prince Charming in most of their fantasies. After he was killed, the rest of the Storm Imperial City began to enforce Luo Qing's orders. Many of Lu Meier's close aides were rooted out, while the entire Rokudo family was ruined. I didn't expect you to be a Type 4 Divine Warrior. That's great. Come and show me some love. The moment they entered the room, Willianna, who had been set free from her ropes, immediately pounced on Zhong with desire, her body in heat, exuding an irresistible charm. Zhong looked at her and likewise felt aroused, kissing her roughly. In the midst of their passionate kisses, both of them fell onto the huge bed, and within moments, moans of pleasure filled up the entire room. As for Lu Mei'er, who was still wrapped by the blood-sucking vines, her energy sapped, she could only look at the live show in front of her with a red face. After the bout of passion, Willianna curled up like a little kitten in Zhong's arms, revealing an expression of bliss. Her man was actually a Type 4 Divine Warrior. She felt proud of it. Zhong continued to look at Lu Mei'er quietly while he was naked. He was thinking about how to deal with this outstanding but vicious woman. Her eyes flashed with a strange glint as she spoke up. Zhong, release me, please. I'm willing to be your woman and work for you. You have just conquered the Vulture tribe. You'll definitely need talents. I've managed Storm Valley for many years and have the experience. I can help you whip up the faction into shape, letting you focus on your external conquests. Lu Mei'er knew that Zhong could handle himself without being overcome by lust from the way he had treated Luo Qing and herself. After all, the both of them were incredible beauties, and most other men would have long since given in to their desires. However, Zhong just insisted on the prehistoric tech as well as the Imperial city. From his request for the Storm 8 Greats, she knew he needed manpower. Zhong replied indifferently, "That's right, I do need talents. You might be an outstanding supervisor. However, your ambitions are too much. I do not want to be poisoned one day, suddenly without knowing it." Lu Mei'er was indeed an outstanding lady. In terms of strength, capabilities, and looks, Willianna and her were worlds apart. However, Zhong could feel safe sleeping with Willianna. As for Lu Mei'er, he would have to be wary of her every second. Who knew if she would slice his throat in the middle of the night or feed him some poisoned tea? Lu Mei'er fell silent before slowly lifting her head, using a clear gaze to propose, "I do not deny that I'm ambitious. However, if you release me, I can slave for you for 30 years. After 30 years, I will leave, and you cannot stop me. Within these 30 years, I will definitely obey all your orders." Interesting. Fine, I promise you. However, if you dare betray me in these 30 years, don't blame me for being vicious. Zhong chuckled before going over to tear the vines away. As the blood-sucking vines fell off her body, the bloody wounds could be seen. However, she gritted her teeth and struggled to stand up, revealing a pretty smile. "Thank you." Zhong stared at her and asked, "Is the poison on Luo Qing curable?" Lu Meier's face turned serious as she shook her head. "At that time, I was just focused on destroying her and did not think of leaving a way out. There's no antidote for it." Zhong then continued, "What kind of technology does the Storm Valley possess?" Lu Mei'er responded, "The Storm Valley's core technology lies in energy shields and converters. Using these converters, we can convert the energy from a mutant beast nucleus into power, turning into an energy shield that defends against enemy attacks. The entire Imperial city is relying on such technology. With enough power, the Imperial city can generate a huge energy shield, blocking any forms of attack. Even a Type 7 Divine Warrior would not be able to attack us if the energy shield is up. Chapter 821, Cracked Tooth Gorge. Chapter 821, Cracked Tooth Gorge. Zhong's eyes brightened up at those words. Energy shields and converters. Zhong had a few equipment that utilized the same concept, such as the Shield of Light from the system and the Bronze Spiritual Bell. Both were examples. However, with the passing of time, enemies grew stronger and the effectiveness of the Shield of Light and Bronze Spiritual Bell diminished. Even so, they were precious defensive treasures. If he could mass-produce such equipment, the casualty rate of Zhong's soldiers would be brought down a lot, increasing their combat power to a whole new level. Zhong asked curiously, "Since the Storm Valley has such advanced technology, how come I don't see your people equipping them?" Mei'er replied, "Although the Storm Valley possesses the resources and blueprints, we lack the ability to produce them. After all, there are various components required, and only Finia of the Storm 8 Greats can produce some from mutant beast bones. As of now, there are only 40 such shields that could utilize the technology. Those 40 storm battle shields have been brought by Finia to guard at the Cracked Tooth Gorge, defending against the Dino-General Kinken." Zhong's brows arched as he asked curiously, "Defend against the Dino-General Kinken? You guys can hold your own against the Dino-people?" The Dino-people had terrifying strength, which Zhong had seen for himself in Temron prison. They could summon a dozen Type 4 low-grade Dino-Generals and even a single Type 5 mid-grade Dino-General at the snap of a finger. With such forces, Zhong could not fathom how the Storm Valley could possibly defend against them. Mei'er chuckled. "In terms of a frontal clash, of course, we aren't their match. A single mid-grade Dino-General could lead 4 of his subordinates to wipe out entire forces over a Cracked Tooth Gorge out. However, the peaks of the gorge are truly high, each peak towering at about 3,000 meters. The cliff walls are steep and hard to climb as well. The valley is narrow and hard to traverse, only allowing a single person through. Finia had led 1,000 of Storm Valley's finest to stand guard there. Even a mid-grade Dino-General would find it hard to pass. Other than that, we also have an alliance with the winged race over there. With their help, there is no way that the Dino-people can get through the gorge." She turned serious. "In fact, Zhong, if it hadn't been for my overlooking of Zheng and Dao Ge, with just their own strength, it's impossible for them to enter Storm Valley. Even for someone as strong as you wouldn't be able to go against the entire Storm Valley. While every single one of the Storm 8 Greats is below you in strength, with their unique abilities, as long as all of them work together with the Storm battle armor, even a Type 5 mid-grade Dino-General would not be able to beat them." Zhong nodded quietly as he listened. He knew that there were many strange abilities out here. Some sick, overpowered individuals could even kill Type 4 experts when they were just Type 3. After all, combat did not rely on just the level of strength they had. There were so many factors involved. Zhong had come across his fair share of experts stronger than him. Every single one of the Storm 8 Greats was talented geniuses. Having strange abilities was not something unexpected. Instead, if they did not have them, they would have been torn apart by the Dino race long ago. Zhong suddenly asked, "Can the forces over a Cracked Tooth Gorge defend against high-grade Dino-Generals?" That was an existence of the Type 6 realm. Zhong did not expect the Storm Warriors to be able to fend one off just with the power of the Storm Armor alone. Mei'er laughed bitterly and shook her head. "A high-grade Dino-General is a demon-like existence. If they were to attack, it would only take a single day for them to crush Cracked Tooth Gorge. Other than fleeing, there's nothing else we can do." Zhong's heart sank when he heard that. As expected, a Type 6 Divine Warrior was still a terrifying disaster. Mei'er continued softly. "However, there are not many in the Dino race that have reached that level. I think there are only about 20 or 30 of them." They are all overlords and have their own countries or territories. Unless the Dino King commands them, they would not act easily. Because of that, our Green region is able to exist. If they were to act, even if all of Green region banded together, it would not amount to much. He sighed before asking, with Dino-General Kinken's strength, rate the rest of the factions. Zhong had a very bad feeling. In this world which was dominated by the Dino race, every single faction was a terrifying existence. Mei'er replied, Dino-General Kinken is a low-grade one. He stands guard at Cracked Tooth Gorge, having tried a few times to invade Green region, but failing each time thanks to Fray and her troops. He belongs to the Stegosaurus King's kingdom. The Dino-people of the Stegosaurus kingdom follows the evolution path of the Stegosaurus, each of them possessing a dangerous close combat ability. Their bodies are usually covered in spikes formed from bones. The king, Kinken, is a Type 6 divine warrior. Zhong frowned and asked a few more questions before dismissing her to rest. The Cracked Teeth Gorge was a crevasse of towering mountains and steep peaks, one of the few natural paths reaching Green region within the Dolomite Mountains, as well as the only path connecting the Stegosaurus kingdom to Green region. At a particular narrow path with cliffs on either side, there was a huge wall of over 200 m cast in green rock. There was no entrance in the wall, only a number of small bullet holes, with numerous Storm Warrior elites hidden behind, using their electromagnetic guns and battle spears to keep watch. From time to time, a patrol troop formed out of a dozen winged people would fly one round from above the wall, checking on any potential attacks from the Dino-people. The 3000 M mountain peaks were an insurmountable wall to normal people, but to those of the Dino race, as long as they spent enough time and energy, they could traverse up the 3000 M tall peaks. Without the winged race helping scout, Cracked Tooth Gorge would have long since fallen. A pretty lady with her long, blonde hair tied up in a ponytail and wearing a green storm armor came to the wall, asking one of her subordinates, Jenny, how's it? Jenny swiftly replied with respect, Lady Fray, there's nothing out of the ordinary. Fray's gaze traveled to the dark, distant horizon. Suddenly, from the skies, there was a blaring sound of an alarm. Fray's face fell as she ordered loudly, enemy attack. Everyone, prepare for battle. At the same time, a number of warriors charged into the interior parts of the wall, leaving only a few dozen storm warriors with shields. Soon, from the skies, over 300 of the winged race came flying towards the gorge, their expressions one of shock and fear as they flew over. Right behind them, there were huge swarms of blood-sucking bees chasing after them. Help! A number of the weaker winged people were slower and were immediately pounced on by the blood-sucking bees. They struggled in agony for moments before turning into dried corpses, plunging to the ground. When the rest of the winged people saw this, they flapped their wings furiously, fleeing as fast as they could. There were only a few hundred of them. If they were caught, it would spell their doom. When Fray caught sight of the blood-sucking bees, her eyes turned to one of shock as she barked, prepare your fires. The eyes of one particular pretty storm warrior narrowed as her Type 3 nucleus glowed. She opened her mouth and spat out a blazing trail of flames towards the skies, enveloping a huge patch of the bees. As the flames licked around them, their wings were burnt off, and many of them fell towards the ground like rain. Some of them twisted their bodies, transforming into a cloud of bugs that shot downwards. Fray followed up, winds. Another storm warrior waved her hands, sending powerful tornadoes up into the skies, clashing with the incoming bees. Together with the flames, both skills combined to form a powerful fiery tornado that seemed to blow everywhere, incinerating huge numbers of the bees. The number of bees was too many, and they came from all directions. One of the storm warriors immediately stepped forward and readied her huge shield. With a light flash, the energy shot out from the shield, forming a large barrier in front of the dozens of warriors at the city wall. However, while it could protect them, It likewise prevented the fiery tornado from blowing out. From the holes in the wall, a number of electromagnetic beams shot out at the skies, tearing apart the bees that were in the way. Many of the bees managed to slip into these gun holes, and soon there were miserable screams of the countless storm warriors from within. Phinia looked at the cloud of bees, and her eyes flashed with anxiety. Shit, what do we do? The number of bees was simply too many. Under such circumstances, the threat of these bugs was even higher than a Type 5 Divine Warrior. Chapter 8:22 Mutual Destruction. Chapter 8:22 Mutual Destruction. Out here in this pitch-black gorge, where there were bugs everywhere, a number of bright lights radiated out as large patches of the bees were being shot down, shredded into pieces. However, at the same time, human screams filled the air. The cloud of blood-sucking bees was like a calamity, swallowing everything in their path. No holes could escape their attention as they got through the various crevices and cracks, pouncing on the storm warriors. The various openings for guns turned out to be their downfall, as the bees made use of those to enter the city wall. However, while they were able to cause a widespread panic as well as some painful screams, they were unable to wipe them out quickly as the numbers flying in were still too little. It was not enough to cause a widespread pandemonium yet. So far, 6 or 7 unfortunate storm warriors have been sucked dry, while the rest have been stung and were in agony, but not dead yet. Many smart storm warriors made use of their belongings to stuff the holes, preventing more bees from entering. As they were fending off the bees with all their might and will, behind the swarm of bees, a number of Dino-people wielding long and sharp bone blades came marching through the narrow valley. There was something that they had done which caused the blood-sucking bees to ignore them entirely. At the same time, borrowing the cover of the night, a number of them began to crawl up the face of the cliff toward the city wall. The peaks on either side of cracked Tooth Gorge were truly exceptional and tall, impregnable to most humans. However, to these Dino-people, it was not something that they could not handle. In the past, with the alliance and help of the winged race, they could easily kill those Dino-people who attempted to scale the mountains. That was why they had not utilized such a method to attack last time. Currently, due to the threat of the blood-sucking bees, the winged race people were actually fleeing, allowing the Dino-people to seize the opportunity and quickly climb. On the wall, Phinia and the dozen storm warriors were being forced into a corner as the flames continued to fire into the skies, burning many of the bees. As the flames blazed red and the black swarms of bees clashed together, it created a furious mesh of colors. All around Phinia, there were countless blood-sucking bees trying to get close. However, they were blown away by the tornadoes, unable to reach her. Right at this time, a huge bone blade came swinging from the side of the wall, and with a slash, the flame-spitting storm warrior was decapitated. Phinia howled in anguish when she saw it. Suddenly, a number of bone spikes appeared from both sides of the wall, making their way towards Phinia and the rest. 3 of the storm warriors activated their shields, the Type 3 nuclei on them glowing brightly, as huge energy shields were generated. The sharp bone spikes landed on the shields, causing loud clangs, but were ultimately deflected off, while the shields trembled slightly. Right at this moment, a figure of over 3 m, wrapped in thick scales, his body full of bone plates, and his claws long and sharp, came over slowly. In his hands, there was a long and sharp blade made out of tailbone. He spoke. "You are the Storm Valley's Lady Phinia? Truly capable. I have not gotten my hands on such a cute pet before. Come be my pet. I will let you have a good life. If you don't agree, I will capture you to feed my red tooth." Seeing that savage Dino-General whose body was emitting a thick blood scent, Phinia was immediately overwhelmed by his aura. She had already utilized the storm battle armor to reach the Type 4 Divine Warrior realm, yet it was not enough to dispel the oppressive feeling. A number of Dino-Generals came leaping over the wall, wielding bone blades, standing quietly behind this leader. Their gazes were full of bloodlust as they stared at the ladies. The thick pressure and bloodlust caused them to feel suffocated. Phineas suppressed the fear as she asked, "You're a mid-grade Dino-General from the Stegosaurus kingdom?" The Dino-General looked at Phineas with a condescending gaze as though he was staring at a dead person. "That's right. I'm Ku-Hazan, a mid-grade Dino-General from the Stegosaurus kingdom. Do you choose to be my pet, or to die with your people here?" Phineas revealed a smile as she pressed a button on her battle spear. "I choose mutual destruction. Let's perish together." Huh. At that instant, a bright light flashed out on top of the city wall, enveloping everything within its radius. The various storm warriors were swallowed up and blown apart in pieces as the earth-shaking shockwave traveled outwards. Under the detonation, the entire cracked Tooth Gorge was forced wider as rocks and boulders came tumbling down. By the time the explosion ended, the city wall had been obliterated, leaving behind masses of broken boulders. A large number of the Dino-people on the wall and around it had also been consumed, leaving only about 20 Type 3 Dino-people who had been far away, thus escaping the area of effect. These 20 Dino-people began to dig into the rubble and debris right after they recovered from shock. "This is General Ku-Hazan's tail. This is his finger." The 20 of them managed to find a variety of broken limbs and body parts. They stared at them while exchanging looks. One of them asked, "What now?" Another quipped, "I think we can only go back to report this to the commander." The operation this time had caused all the Dino-Generals to be killed. As small fries, they had no choice but to retreat and report. Soon the 20 Type 3 Dino-people swiftly left in the darkness. At the moment when the huge explosion occurred, the bright light radiated through the skies. A dirge sounded through the storm Imperial City. Luo Qing was currently handling some affairs when she heard the sounds, and her body trembled. Her eyes filled with anguish. "Phineas, you actually chose to die together with those beasts." The pain faded quickly as she summoned a beauty with short, gray hair. "Anina, go delegate your troops. Prepare to evacuate Green Region." Anina's eyes flashed with a solemn look as she nodded. "Understood." After she left, Luo Qing swiftly summoned Zhong. "Zhong, this is the prehistoric tech that our Storm Valley has." Luo Qing spoke as she shot Mei'er a look, frowning. With a wave of her hands, a storm warrior stepped up to hand a golden box to Zhong. Zhong opened it up and took a look, noticing that there were indeed many resources and blueprints on the energy converters and shields. His eyes flashed with delight before looking at Mei'er. Mei'er spoke softly. "Luo Qing might be overbearing, but her personality is truly trustworthy. Since she has already promised this to you, she wouldn't go back on her words. Zhong, since you want control over the Imperial City, come with me." Luo Qing then stood up and walked off suavely. Zhong chuckled lightly and followed after. After passing through a number of corridors, he finally came to a control room with countless monitors connected by various thick cables linked to one main central computer. The computer was supporting over hundreds of displays. However, every single monitor was black. Evidently, the computer was not in use. Luo Qing pointed to it and said, "This here is the central computer of Storm Imperial City. As long as you can control this, you gain control over the entire Imperial City. However, it has already stopped working for over hundreds of years. As to how the Imperial City can stay afloat and what the technology behind is, I am not sure myself. We can only stay here, but in order to truly control it, you will have to work it out yourself. I'm handing it to you." Zhong looked at the central computer and frowned, pulling out his handheld display, revealing by E. He asked, "How can I activate this central computer?" A small radar appeared and began to emit waves, scanning the computer in front of her, as by Yi's eyes turned to flashes of data. Bai Yi then pointed to one corner of it and said, "Open that small door. After that, place a Type 3 nucleus in and press this button. You should be able to kickstart it." Luo Qing looked at Bai Yi with a gaze of wonder. Zhong followed by Yi's instructions and opened up the small hatch, inserting a Type 3 nucleus before pressing a button. At that moment, following a loud whir of gears and power, a number of bulbs started to glow as the displays all turned on. Chapter 823, Controlling the Storm Battleship. Chapter 823, Controlling the Storm Battleship. After 20 seconds, the main display shone with a box as a metallic voice sounded. Please enter the password. Luo Qing watched quietly. The Storm Imperial City was a high-tech weapon. She naturally had tried to work it before. She had found the hatch to insert the nucleus before and was stuck at the password stage. She did not have it after all. Zhong pulled out a cable, intending to connect by E to the main computer. However, he discovered that both ends were incompatible. The cables are of different ends. I can't connect you. There's no need. At such close proximity, the radar waves are enough. Please wait a moment. After that, the handheld tablet began to emit waves outwards again, as by Yi's eyes turned to data and numerals. The main display of the central computer suddenly flashed as a password was keyed in automatically. The voice message was canceled, and they were in. Welcome, controller with S-Class access. A metallic voice sounded its congratulations from the central computer. Behind, Luo Qing and Lu Mei'er saw this, and their eyes were wide with shock. What? He actually managed to gain control. Running self-diagnostics. Currently, the battleship only has 10% energy left, data connection damage at 23%, the power system is intact, weapon system damage at 32%, energy shield converters intact, shield systems intact. Please insert a Type 7 nucleus to operate the battleship. After a series of tests, the results were displayed for Zhong to see. Zhong laughed bitterly when he saw this. Type 7 mutant beast nucleus. Not to mention a Type 7 mutant beast nucleus. Zhong did not even have a Type 6 one. The Type 5 nuclei in his hands were not many. Only 3, of which one had been given to Greenie. Of the other 2, one was fuel for the light gold sun battle armor, which left him with only 1. There was no way for Zhong to obtain a Type 7 nucleus at this point. Those monsters were creatures that could cause disasters with just their movements. The Type 7 Sea Snake Emperor had stirred up a storm out in the middle of the sea, causing tsunamis every few seconds. Few intelligent life forms would stay out there, because each time there was a war between the overlords, the terrifying storms that ensued would consume any weaker life forms. Zhong asked, I only have Type 4 and Type 3 nuclei. How many would the battleship need? In order to fully exhibit the capabilities of the battleship, it would require 1 Type 7 nucleus, 40 Type 6 nuclei, 800 Type 5 nuclei, 8,000 Type 4 nuclei, or 80,000 Type 3 nuclei. When he heard that terrifying figure, his scalp went numb. The battleship might be truly terrifying in terms of combat strength, but its energy consumption was likewise fearsome. Although he had the means to hunt Type 3 mutant beasts, who knew how long it would take to hunt 80,000. Even the Storm Valley with its long history would not be able to take out 80,000 Type 3 nuclei just like that. Luo Qing saw the list and heaved a sigh of relief. If Zhong had no means of taking out so many nuclei, then the Imperial City was going to stay. Zhong's eyes flashed as he asked, the power system. If just that, how many Type 3 nuclei would it require? If using the power system, without the energy shields, it would require 5,000 Type 3 nuclei. What about a single trip of about 10,000 kilometers? How many then? 500. However, if using too little of them, it would not be a reusable source. After 10,000 kilometers, the 500 Type 3 nuclei would crumble into dust due to overexpenditure. Zhong's heart eased slightly and smiled. That's enough. Zhong had obtained a mountain of nuclei from the stomach of the Type 6 mutant beast inside the sea of mutant beasts. The majority of it had been Type 3 nuclei, with over 3,000 of them. It would be enough to support the Storm battleship for a flight of 60 kilometers. The only downside was that all the combat features would be locked out, and the powerful energy shields could not be utilized due to the shortage of energy. Even so, a floating city was able to give Yu Zhong a slight sense of security in this dark and cruel world. Please insert the nuclei. An alloy door opened up in front of Yu Zhong. With a wave of his hands, he pulled out 500 of the Type 3 nuclei inside his storage ring and dumped them into the hatch. Luo Qingqing and Lu Mei'er were truly speechless this time. Storm Valley was a huge faction with hundreds of years in history. Even they would find it tough to muster 500 Type 3 nuclei at a moment's notice. Yu Zhong had simply waved them out of thin air. The Storm Valley's wealth and inheritance grew by dozens of Type 3 nuclei every year, but in these hundreds of years, through the endless combat, there would likewise be consumption as well. Hence, their Type 3 nuclei were not a lot. In terms of resources, the faction that had the most nuclei would be the Dino-people. The Stegosaurus kingdom alone would already have more than Yu Zhong. While Storm Valley might be a hegemon among the human factions, compared to the Dino-people, it was barely a small-sized group. Yu Zhong looked at the brightened central computer, his eyes flashing with satisfaction. Before turning to speak to Luo Qingqing, let's talk about our forces working together to destroy the pterosaur mountain. Luo Qingqing shook her head. I'm afraid that'll have to wait. Yu Zhong's gaze turned sharp as a smile disappeared. Why? After this short period of communication, Yu Zhong was sure that Luo Qingqing would not go back on her words. For her to turn down his request, there must be some reason. Her face turned sullen as she replied, "We just suffered a devastating attack on Cracked Tooth Gorge. Our green region has now lost its defense. The Stegosaurus kingdom would definitely make use of that to invade green region and hunt. None of our factions can stand up against them. We have no choice but to evacuate now." Luo Qingqing had governed Storm Valley for a number of years, and had clashed against the Stegosaurus kingdom plenty of times. She was clear on their ability to deal with low-grade Dino-Generals, but against the mid-grade ones, unless she suddenly broke through to the Type 5 Divine Warrior realm, it would not mean much. Even if she relied on the Storm Armor in a frontal clash, she was not a match for a mid-grade Dino-General yet. Once the Stegosaurus kingdom got through the Cracked Tooth Gorge, the entire green region would become their hunting grounds. Other than fleeing and hiding, the humans could only pray they would not be found. Yu Zhong's heart sank when he heard this. The Dino-people were in control over a large part of this world. He was not overconfident to think that he could defend against their invasion. Luo Qingqing suddenly said, "Yu Zhong, although it's a bit sudden, I hope that you'll allow our Storm Valley people to stay in the Imperial City. If we work together, we can escape from them." Now that the Storm Valley belonged to Yu Zhong, Luo Qingqing could only ask Yu Zhong for help. If they did not have this airborne castle, the hundreds of thousands of people in Storm Valley would perish out in the world filled with mutant beasts, prehistoric beasts, ferocious dinosaurs, and mutant bugs. They would not even make it past 100 kilometers if they fled on foot. It was possible that even before the Dino-people made their move, the hundreds of thousands of people might die along the way. After all, they were at the bottom of the food chain. There were plenty of predators out there. The Storm Valley, Pterosaur Mountain, and Sun Alliance had all built cities to gather the strength of people and their intelligence, hanging on in Green Region. Only then they could survive in this world. Those factions that were chased away or banished would sooner or later perish at the hands and jaws of various beasts. Yu Zhong looked at Luo Qingqing and replied, "Luo Qingqing, you should know that my people need this battleship as well. By being on this ship, your people will take up living space. If you want to stay, you'll have to fork out the right price." Luo Qingqing gritted her teeth. 100 Type 3 mutant beast nuclei and a single Type 4 nucleus. Yu Zhong responded, "Not enough. I want you guys to listen to my orders at the necessary time to fight the Dino-people. If you can agree to this, on top of the mutant beast nuclei you just promised, I can let you guys come on board." Luo Qingqing gritted her teeth to reply, "All right, but our Storm Valley would not accept suicide mission." Zhong agreed, sure. After hesitating a while, Zhong retrieved a glass vial with a drop of golden blood in it, handing it to her. This should be able to absolve you of the poison. Luo Qing took it, her heart shaking with emotions. However, she did not consume it straight away. Instead, looking at Zhong warily, what do you want? Chapter 824, Ambush. Chapter 824, Ambush. Zhong looked at Luo Qing seriously. I hope that we can be allies, and you will help us out during my fight against the Dino-people. A mid-grade Dino-General had the strength of a Type 5 Divine Warrior. Their body physique also far exceeded humans, thus boosting their combat prowess. Even if Zhong wore the light gold sun armor with the Type 5 nucleus, he had no confidence of defeating a mid-grade Dino-General. He needed all the help he could get. Luo Qing was a genius among her fellow women. In terms of qualifications, she was even higher than Zhong, who had the God and Devil imprint. Her combat prowess was strong. If Zhong could gain her help, he would have the hope of fighting against mid-grade Dino-General. The Stegosaurus kingdom was preparing to invade the Green region. Under such circumstances, if he could enlist the help of this expert, Zhong would be able to survive even longer. Zhong had truly considered swallowing Storm Valley, but he quickly gave up the idea. This was because if he captured or killed Luo Qing, it would not mean that the whole Storm Valley would follow him. Furthermore, due to the current situation, it was imperative to have an ally. Luo Qing was upright and stayed true to words. She was a rare heroine. If she agreed to become Zhong's ally, he would gain a powerful friend and support. Luo Qing's eyes flashed with a resolute gaze. Okay, I promise you, as long as I'm alive, and Zhong, you do not betray our Storm Valley will be your most trusted ally. Hearing her promise, Zhong's face revealed a satisfied smile. On the other side, Mei'er watched this with envy. She had hoped to be able to negotiate with Zhong as an equal, not his subordinate. After the matters were settled, Luo Qing began to gather her people to evacuate into the storm battleship. Although it was termed as a battleship, it was more like a floating city. Squeezing a few 100,000 people was not an issue. In the past, only the upper echelons of the Storm Valley could reside within this floating city. Now, in order to flee the invasion of the Stegosaurus kingdom, many of them began to move on to it. As they were evacuating, a bright light shot towards the skies as a number of dirges sounded from the battleship. Luo Qing found Zhong and spoke solemnly. Zhong, this cannot go on. The Stegosaurus kingdom has already acted. Their target our Storm Valley. Obviously, Zheng and Daogu had revealed our location to them. I'm afraid that before our people had finished evacuating, they would reach. I'm going to bring my troops to attack them. I'll leave things here to you. Luo Qing had sent various units to guard the numerous paths towards the Storm Valley. That single beam of light represented one of the units being annihilated by the Stegosaurus Kingdom forces. The Storm Warriors at that location had already set off the bombs in order to deal with them. Suicide bombers were one of the methods to deal with those powerful Dino-people. After all, the weakest Dino person would still be at least at the Type 2 Divine Warrior threshold, and the majority of their troops were already at the Type 3 realm. Zhong grinned. I'll go with you. I want to have a good gauge of their capabilities. While hunting the Dino race, Zhong could absorb their life force and nourish himself through the God and Devil imprint, further evolving himself. Inside the Storm Valley, a large number of Storm Warriors were facilitating the evacuation. Zhong's presence would not add much help. Many thanks. Let's go. Luo Qing cast a deep glance at Zhong. With a swish of her cape, she turned around, and under the escort of 4 of her Storm 8 Greats, 36 Storm Warriors, they made their way out. Zhong glanced at Mei'er beside him and spoke mildly. Let's go. Yes. Mei'er replied and followed after him. After they left Storm Valley, the group quickly traversed through the lush forest. All of a sudden, Another beam of light shot into the skies. "Beast!" Luo Qingqing saw and cursed under her breath, intending to charge over. At this moment, Zhong suddenly barked out, "Wait a minute!" The storm warriors continued to rain shots on them, causing many to fall. Even so, the numbers crawling up were high. The low-grade Dino-General who had been forced out of the gorge roared out and leaped his way up the gorge. However, just as he reached up, he was immediately accosted by Storm Queen Luo Qingqing, her battle spear shooting for his forehead. With her strength and the enhancement from the battle armor, as well as her innate tornado manipulation ability, her speed was pushed to the maximum. The low-grade Dino-General had just made his way up and had to face such a powerful force. He was taken aback and brought up his own spear in an attempt to deflect it while twisting his body slightly to the other side. Luo Qingqing's terrifying thrust caught the shoulder of the Dino-General, and her strength burst forth, blasting it into pieces, causing him to soar through the air. In midair, a single electromagnetic beam shot out from some corner, piercing his head, blasting it apart. Chapter 825. The Army Enters the Fray. Chapter 825. The Army Enters the Fray. At that moment, the Dino-General's head was blown off. A single Dino warrior swiftly made his way up the gorge, appearing in front of a storm warrior with an electromagnetic gun. He swiped out at her head, decapitating her in one blow, as fresh blood sprayed from her neck. The Dino warriors climbed up quickly and pounced towards the storm warriors. The storm warriors had already made their mental preparations to be fodder here as they raised their battle spears and charged forth to meet the Dino warriors in an all-out clash. A single Dino warrior would require 4 storm warriors in their storm armor to battle with a formation. If they were caught alone, then in a few breaths, they would be annihilated. The combat strength of those Dino warriors was truly fearsome. Earlier, the storm warriors held the advantage, but with the increasing number of Dino warriors crossing the gorge, they were starting to get suppressed. Go to hell! Luo Qingqing charged right into the battle like a war goddess. With a single thrust of her spear, a Dino warrior's head was blasted apart. She dashed right into their midst, attacking every side as though invincible, and none of the Dino warriors seemed to be able to handle a single move. Long live Her Majesty! The female storm warriors let out excited cheers, seeing their own queen crushing their enemies like it was nothing, and their morale instantly skyrocketed. They threw all fear of death to the wind, and their combat abilities were raised to the maximum. She truly is powerful. Zhong continued to fire his electromagnetic gun at the Dino warriors while observing Luo Qingqing slaughtering the enemy. Not only was her display of strength intimidating while she culled her enemies, but everywhere she went, the morale of the storm warriors would soar, and the battle got even more intense. Not many men could even perform half as well as her. Mei'er, who had been standing beside Zhong, bit her lips as she gazed at Luo Qingqing with a complicated expression. She could not help but admit that on the battlefield, she could not compare to Luo Qingqing. In terms of a life-and-death battle, Luo Qingqing could absolutely crush her in a single move. Although Mei'er was also a Type 4 Divine Warrior, she had relied on her heaven-defying talents and some resources to raise her strength to that level. In terms of fighting and killing, she was way behind Luo Qingqing. Therefore, while she had the strength, some peak Type 3 Divine Warriors might be able to deal with her. The Dino warriors were being slaughtered one by one, and although they were naturally fearless, under the overbearing and violent torrential storm that was Luo Qingqing, many of them started to feel fear. When the remaining Dino warriors made it up the gorge, they quickly tried to flee. Zhong killed 3 Dino warriors, while Luo Qingqing chased after 4 and killed them mercilessly. The remaining ones managed to flee through the forest and disappeared. This time, the ambush could be considered a huge success that turned the tides. Zhong came to one of the cliffs, looking at the dozens of storm warrior corpses, his expression solemn. These Dino warriors are truly a force to behold. Of the ambush party, there were Zhong and Luo Qing, 2 Type 4 divine warriors, and another 100 storm warriors. Such a formidable force, together with the advantage of an ambush. Had it been against any other human forces, it would have been enough to annihilate the enemy entirely. Furthermore, their own casualties would not have reached such a frightening number. However, the Dino warriors had truly reacted in a manner that had cost them dozens of their elites. At the same time, the strength of the Dino warriors exceeded the strategies and tactics of how humans fought. In such a terrain, they did not seem to suffer any disadvantages. Instead, it was more like a minor setback. The terrains that humans could utilize were lesser and lesser. Luo Qing came up to Zhong and suggested, "We were able to kill so many Dino warriors. Paying such a price is already considered a huge victory for us. Let us scatter." "Fine," Zhong replied. One of the Storm 8 greats, Hanzi Xian, a pretty lady with a heroic aura and an extremely attractive body, pointed to the distance and said, "Your Majesty, look." Zhong and Luo Qing came to her side and followed her fingers to look. What they saw was enough to send these 2 confident and self-assured experts to almost feel despair. Far off in the distance, a cloud of dust and smoke was rising as a huge horde of mutant beasts, dinosaurs and prehistoric life forms were fleeing in a huge group. Behind them, there was a dense troop formed entirely out of Dino warriors. They were mounted on their velociraptors, charging forward with only killing intent, their battle spears culling the various beasts in front of them. In the skies, there were over hundreds of pterosaurs, ridden by bow-wielding Dino warriors. Other than that huge army, there was a single behemoth in the middle of the troops. It was a mountain-like Type 5 Triceratops. Seeing such a terrifying force approaching, no matter how strong Zhong and Luo Qing were, they could not help but feel despair. Even without mentioning the rest, the size of the approaching army was enough to cause despair in the hearts of anyone. There were over tens of thousands of them. Even the best Type 4 divine warrior expert would perish when facing such a force. Also, the Type 5 Triceratops was almost an invincible existence itself already. With all the combined efforts and personnel of Storm Valley, they still would not be able to injure it at all. As strong as Zhong was, if he were to face an uninjured Type 5 mutant beast, he would likely be killed within seconds. Luo Qing looked at the approaching army with its intimidating aerial display, as well as the inclusion of a Type 5 mutant beast, and slowly spoke, "We can only retreat." In the earlier ambush of the Vanguard Party, Luo Qing had to sacrifice a dozen of her warriors. These were elite storm warriors after all. Even if they were to activate all their forces against this approaching army, it would barely cause a ripple slash. No matter how strong she was, and how she could crush her individual enemies, when faced with pure military might, there was only retreat. Zhong frowned and eyed the army before he looked at the surroundings. He suddenly asked Luo Qing, "Do you have any Type 3 divine warrior subordinate with ice-related abilities?" She pointed to the valiant Hanzi Xian and said, "She is one." Zhong was slightly surprised as he looked at her. This warrior seemed even more heroic. Even her pose and posture seemed to surpass Luo Qing slightly. Zhong had assumed that she was a close combat specialist instead of an ice control expert. Hanzi Xian seemed to have felt Zhong's gaze as she turned to shoot him an icy glare. Zhong spoke, 3 days, I need 3 days' time. In this 3 days, I hope you can try your best to delay the advance of this large army." Luo Qing frowned and asked, 3 days? What are you intending?" An icy look flashed across Zhong's face. "I want to give them a harsh lesson on the consequences of pushing us humans too far." Luo Qing stared at him for a good moment before sighing. "All right, I'll promise you this. However, 3 days will be the max I can do. After that, the storm battleship has to leave. Zhong replied, "Let me borrow Han Zixian." "Fine. See you." After gaining her approval, Zhong immediately brought Han Zixian and Mei'er with him towards the distance. One other storm 8 greats, Shi, stepped forward and asked Luo Qingqing, "Your Majesty, aren't you going to ask him what he's planning to do?" "To delay the huge army of the Stegosaurus kingdom. We will have to pay a terrible price." Luo Qingqing had already seen through Zhong's intentions. "I know without asking. He's intending to use the Green River to drown the Dino army by directing the water flow. It is likely that only such a method could possibly deal a huge blow to their forces. What he needs now is most likely to freeze the entire river." When Shi heard that, her face revealed a hint of joy. Making use of the Green River to drown those beasts, truly a good method. Luo Qingqing replied softly, "While it is a good idea, there are too many variables. Powerful mutant beasts exist within the river. Just the creation of a bank there would be tough. At the same time, to direct the water flow requires a huge undertaking of construction and work. This would be another large obstacle to overcome in employing this tactic." Shi, don't get your hopes high. The probability of success is very likely small. Luo Qingqing had considered it before, but the various problems seemed too impossible to overcome. Without the certainty of success, she had no choice but to give it up. Shi could not help but ask, "In that case, Your Majesty, why did you agree to impede the Stegosaurus army for 3 days?" Luo Qingqing's eyes flashed with a wise look. "Our Storm Valley people need time to board the storm battleship. Furthermore, it would require 2 more days to transport the necessary resources to support these many survivors. No matter what, we have to endure another 2 might days. We might as well go out on a leg and do some more. Just treat it as repayment for Zhong's allowance of our people to board the storm battleship." Chapter 826, Building a Dam. Chapter 826, Building a Dam. As the party ran through the forest, Mei'er quipped, "You're intending to use the Green River to drown the Dino army." Zhong did not intend to hide anything. "That's right." Mei'er looked at Zhong and immediately listed out the problems. "It's useless. There are too many strong mutant beasts within, over 200 of them residing inside. Not to mention the type 3 mutant beasts. It's impossible to form a dam with just us. Even if we sacrifice ourselves to do it, how are we going to redirect the water flow?" Han Zixian did not say anything, but her eyes flashed with agreement. She too did not reckon that the tactic was going to work. Zhong suddenly said, "Han Zixian, what are your thoughts?" She replied coolly, "I'll obey Her Majesty and listen to your commands." In the Storm Valley, Luo Qingqing's words were the law, even if Han Zixian did not understand it. As long as it was Luo Qingqing's orders, she would carry it out. "That's good enough for me. I have my ways." Zhong replied indifferently before continuing to run towards the direction of the huge Green River. Mei'er pouted helplessly before following him. The party of 3 were powerful experts and managed to dispose of the low-level mutant beast along the way, finally arriving in front of the huge, gushing river. He discovered that the Green River was very different from any he had seen on Earth. The width of the river from bank to bank was already over 100 or 200 kilometers, as though one could not see the other side. With just a look, he could already see many huge type 4 mutant beasts frolicking and having fun in the water. Other than these enormous beasts, a few water-type crocodile-like creatures were also swimming within the waters. From time to time, one would observe the water mutant beasts engaging in slaughter, causing waves in their struggles. Zhong could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. If it wasn't for the trump card in his hands, he would have decided to give the idea up. Mutant beasts were hard to deal with. Engaging with water-based ones in their own terrain was 10 times hard than those on land. In this Green River, there were numerous gigantic beasts. Even if all the top elites of Storm Valley were to come, It would only be suicide to take on these monsters. Mei'er stood one side and eyed Zhong, her look one of gloating. Although she dare not go against him on the surface, she had long since viewed this plan of his with contempt. With a thought, Zhong channeled his summoned tamed beast technique, and a void appeared in mid-air before Greenie came flying out. Seeing the sudden appearance of the beast, Mei'er and Han Zixian could not help but turn pale. What the hell is that? Greenie's wingspan was already more than 100 wingspan, its body huge, and it looked like a mythical beast exuding a powerful pressure. At the same time, airborne mutant beasts might not be the strongest or the sturdiest in defense, but their speed was undeniably the hardest to deal with. Looking at Greenie, Mei'er immediately turned to run. Han Zixian, on the other hand, turned pale while she ignited her storm armor and its Type 3 nucleus, wielding her battle spear to leap forward in front of Zhong, shouting loudly, "Quick, run! This is a Type 4 aerial mutant beast. We are not its match." Zhong looked at her appreciatively before saying, "No need to be afraid. It's my tamed beast." He took a good look at this suave and brave, yet beautiful girl and felt envious. Luo Qingqing actually had such a powerful and loyal subordinate. While Zhong had his fair share of loyal youths who would die for him, they were all hot-blooded males. A beauty like Han Zixian, who was also an expert in her own right, was rare amongst his ranks. As to the beautiful Mei'er, to Zhong, she was just a pawn to be used. In times of trouble, he would not hesitate to abandon her. Han Zixian's mouth was agape with disbelief. Your tamed beast? This was a Type 4 mutant beast, an aerial one at that. They were hard to subdue, much less a Type 4 one. The Storm Valley had their own tamed beasts as well, but they were mostly Type 2 and below, not comparable with Greenie. With a powerful gust, Greenie descended from the skies, landing on the ground. Right in front of Han Zixian's look of disbelief, it lowered its head towards Zhong. Zhong reached out to pat it, before saying, "I'll go and observe the river and terrain. Stay guarded." She nodded silently, before watching him soar to the skies on Greenie's back. Her heart was filled with complicated emotions as she thought silently, "This man truly still has so much to show. No wonder Her Majesty is willing to befriend him." An aerial mutant beast was difficult to deal with. Just a Type 4 Greenie was enough to cause the whole Storm Valley to have a headache. If they went against Zhong, they would have to be prepared against this mighty beast, which will wear their energy down. Any single person who dared try to take it on would definitely perish. She had not understood why Luo Qingqing would be so courteous to such a man, but now she was finally convinced. Mei'er also stepped out from one side, looking up at the skies, her expression one of embarrassment. "This is it." Zhong sat on Greenie's back, looking below. His eyes lit up as he was searching for a perfect spot for a dam and urged Greenie down. The location was a small tributary that flowed into Green River. It was fast-flowing and less than 100 meters in width. It was the best location to build a dam. He got off and observed the surroundings a little, before channeling his summoned tamed beast technique again. This time, the gigantic turtle came out of it. After Zhong had returned from the sea of mutant beasts, he had fed his tamed beasts many Type 4 nuclei, causing most of them to reach the Type 4 stage. As Turtle crawled out, it nodded slightly at Zhong before entering the water. The moment it entered, it swung its tail and caused a huge wave, before it turned around and spat out a frosty air, immediately freezing the huge chunk of water into a block of ice. As a Type 4 mutant beast with an incredible innate power, it was not long before a huge icy wall appeared, forming the rough shape of a dam. Zhong sat on Greenie and quickly brought the two ladies over. When they got off Greenie's back, Han Zixian saw the ice dam that had appeared out of nowhere, her eyes full of shock. The dam was actually done. Mei'er herself stared at the Type 4 turtle with shock as well. Zhong replied, "Not yet. This is just the rough shape. The other details require you to fine-tune." Turtle had just created these huge blocks as per Zhong's instructions, But there were plenty of areas that needed more specific and careful adjustments with Han Zixuan's ability. With her, Turtle could quickly create more blocks and save its energy. Understood. I will adjust it now. She nodded and flashed forwards, immediately beginning work on the huge chunk of ice. As they were working on the dam, a Type 4 Anatosaurus was attracted and it swam over quickly. Back on Earth, the Anatosaurus had been known to be land-based. Yet the Type 4 ones of this world had evolved to be amphibian. In truth, after the various evolutions, many of the dinosaurs on this world were vastly different from those on Earth. The only similarities left would be their looks and names. Most other Type 3 mutant beasts were fearful of Type 4 ones. Hence, Turtle's aura had been enough to scare off most others. However, Type 4 mutant beasts were different, each of them highly territorial. Since Turtle had appeared, it was regarded to have intruded on the Type 4 Anatosaurus's area. As an overlord, it would not sit and watch idly. Zhong caught sight of it swimming over and ordered, "Damn, Greenie, take care of it." Greenie was soaring above them, and with a flap of its wings, countless hurricanes were generated before it shot down like an arrow with a Mach 2 speed, its claws stretching out for the head of the Type 4 Anatosaurus. Aerial mutant beasts tend to excel in speed, and while the Type 4 Anatosaurus had an advantage in strength, it was not able to react in time. In an instant, the claws of Greenie pierced through the head of the enormous beast. Greenie then flapped its wings furiously, channeling its innate ability, causing powerful tornadoes to be generated. It forcefully tugged at the Type 4 Anatosaurus, pulling it out of the water and upwards into the sky. If it had not used its innate ability, it would definitely not have been able to lift such a heavy beast. The life force of the Type 4 Anatosaurus was pretty strong, and although its skull had been pierced by Greenie's claws, it continued to struggle and twist, its huge tail swinging up in an attempt to slap Greenie. Chapter 827, The Intense Battle at the Gorge. Chapter 827, The Intense Battle at the Gorge. However, the struggles of the Type 4 Anatosaurus was futile. Due to its body structure, there was no way its tail could reach its head. With its short front limbs, there was no way it could claw above its head as well. Greenie continued to use its ability to flap up high into the skies before letting go. The gigantic Anatosaurus started to plunge down towards the ground like a cannonball, smashing into the earth, and its body was destroyed. With a forceful peck, Greenie bore into the skull of the Type 4 Anatosaurus before gobbling up the nucleus as well as flesh inside. The other Type 4 mutant beasts throughout the river saw this and sank back into the water. The moment they submerged themselves, Greenie would be helpless against them as well. If it tried, those beasts would definitely drag it down underwater. Zhong continued to stare warily into the distance. After discovering that there were no other strange movements from the Type 4 mutant beasts, he heaved a sigh of relief. On the other side, the seemingly endless army of Dino warriors was charging without stop towards the direction of Storm Valley. Go to hell! Go to hell! In a narrow gorge, 30 storm warriors were hidden within the tall grass, each wielding an electromagnetic gun. They fired shots at the passing Dino warriors. Blanketed by the countless beams, 2 of the Dino warriors were instantly blown full of holes. The rest of them leaped up from their mounts, some climbing up the cliff sides, while some others ducked behind cover. A number of the Dino warriors weaved in and out of the fire, and in a few breaths, one managed to dash in front of a storm warrior, opening his huge jaws to clamp down viciously. With a loud snap, the female storm warrior's head was crushed in two, with blood flowing out the Dino warrior's jaws. Shally, beast! Another storm warrior besides the unfortunate lady saw her comrade being killed and let out a scream of anguish, whipping up her electromagnetic gun to aim at the Dino warrior. To her horror, by the time she brought up the gun, she discovered the Dino warrior in front of her. With a single swipe and a flash of shadow, the head of the pretty warrior was in the claws of the Dino person. There was still an expression of shock and fear on the just-deceased storm warrior, her spine still connected to her head. It was a truly gruesome scene. For other Dino warriors also charged into the midst of the storm warriors, causing screams to ring out in a matter of seconds. Soon, the 30 storm warriors who had been stationed to defend this post were all wiped out, leaving only one Dino warrior corpse whose head had been blown apart by an electromagnetic gun. While the other one had been shot full of holes, his heart and brain had been missed. Thus, relying on its regenerative abilities, in just a short matter of time, it was able to return to the battlefield. When this outpost was destroyed, the Dino warriors continued to surge onward to the next one like a tidal wave. Their forces were numerous, and there was no faction in Green Region that could stand in their way. Luo Qingqing had organized her troops to continue sniping and firing at the Dino warriors. Other than leading the elite troop herself, the rest of the units had been deployed out to various areas to impede the Dino warriors. Unfortunately, they were quickly obliterated. The combat strength of these Dino warriors was truly too powerful. Every one of them had at least a peak-type 3 divine warrior strength, even higher than when Zhong first entered the Second World. Such monsters could easily become the head of a faction anywhere on Earth. And yet, here, they were just ordinary rank-and-file soldiers. With such a fearsome army, even though the Storm Warriors were experienced hunters and warriors, there was no way they could fend them off for long. A number of bright white lights shot to the skies in beams, displaying the last resort that most of them had taken when they failed to fight back the Dino warriors. These Storm Warriors were not any weaker than any men, yet when the Dino army marched through, they would leave no lives behind. When the large Dino army invaded Green Region, they separated into 4 large units, 3 of them making their way towards the Sun Alliance, Pterosaur Mountain, as well as Storm Valley separately, while the last one stayed to hunt any other vagabond factions. A large swarm of blood-sucking bees soared through the skies, ravaging through countless human villages as well as small herds of low-level mutant beasts. A unit of Dino warriors continued to march beneath these bees, especially to kill any enemy that was able to deal with the bees. In the forest, the blood-sucking bees had their natural enemies, for example, the thick-hide mutant titan beetles, the type 3 mutant rhinoceros beetle, the mutant hummingbirds, and various other life forms. Once any of these appeared, the Dino warriors below would act out to slaughter them. The majority of the Dino warriors continued to spread out in various directions. Some of the Type 5 experts specially deployed to deal with the tough Type 4 mutant beasts. Under such circumstances, Luo Qingqing and her subordinates fought hard for 2 whole days, managing to deal with 400 Dino warriors. Unfortunately, in the midst of the resistance, their scope of operations was reducing every day before finally being forced to take a last stand at the entrance of Storm Valley. The death of 400 Dino warriors had caused the upper levels of the Dino army to take an interest. At a certain location in Green Region, within a large stone house, over 40 Dino-Generals from the Stegosaurus kingdom were gathered. They all had impressive physiques and were covered in bone plates. These were mid-grade Dino-Generals and were at the Type 5 realm. The commander of them all barked out with a sharp light in his eyes. In these 2 days, we lost 800 of our subordinates. First was the Vanguard wave. Then it was those sent to the Storm Valley. What's going on? We even lost 2 Dino-Generals. When the rest of the mid-grade Dino-Generals heard this, their faces were one of shock as well. Due to their connections with Zheng and Daoge, they were clear that there had only been Type 4 experts among the humans. Any low-grade Dino-General would be able to compare with a human Type 4 Divine Warrior, yet within 2 days, they had lost over 800 subordinates. It was an unbelievable loss. One of the mid-grade Dino-Generals spoke. I think we have underestimated the humans. Ku Hazan had lost his life because he had underestimated these humans. They might be weak and can be slapped to death any time, but their intelligence is not to be taken lightly. They know how to use traps. Because of our oversight, we did not even send a mid-grade Dino-General. That was why we failed to suppress them. Based on the intel that Zheng sent us, the Storm Queen Luo Qing should only be at the peak of Type 4 Divine Warrior. Furthermore, with the enhancement of their storm armor, she could reach the Type 5 realm. Without anyone stopping her, our troops would naturally not be able to stand up to her. The rest of the mid-grade Dino-Generals nodded at those words. A Type 5 Divine Warrior was truly no joke. A person could easily wipe out hundreds of their ordinary Type 3 Divine Warriors. Without a proper general to suppress such a character, it was impossible for the Dino army to not suffer losses. Kinken's eyes flashed dangerously and ordered, "Since this is the case, Ikamine, Mitsuo, go lead the 3rd Battalion. In these 2 days, I want the Storm Valley's defense destroyed." "Understood, for the glory of His Majesty." The 2 appointed mid-grade Dino-Generals stood up and exclaimed loudly. Riding 2 Type 3 pterosaurs, Ikamine and Mitsuo quickly arrived in front of the 3rd Battalion. Not long after, they immediately launched an attack on the entrance of Storm Valley. The warriors began to get on the long iron chains between the 2 cliffs, crawling over like ants. The Storm Warriors had long since been prepared and began their own assault on the Dino Warriors on the chains. One of them had the ability to manipulate the lightning and thunder. Her body glowed with the help of the Type 3 nucleus behind her, and she grabbed onto one of the chains, allowing a bolt of electricity to flow through the chain. In the ensuing screams, the Dino Warriors began to plunge towards the bottom of the cliff. The precipice was extremely deep, over 1,300 m. Even with their Type 3 Divine Warrior strength, these Dino Warriors would still die from such a fall. Another Storm Warrior made use of her ability to control wind blades and fired a particularly strong one towards another metal chain. The wind blades sliced through, causing many of the warriors to have no choice but to leap to avoid it. The moment they leaped up, they were quickly blown apart or ripped to shreds by the raging tornadoes between the cliffs. Another dozen warriors on their pterosaur mounts tried to fly over, but were quickly caught in the tornadoes, flinging them to the bottom of the cliff, their bodies bursting apart upon impact. Chapter 828, The Brink of Collapse. Chapter 828, The Brink of Collapse. Among the elites of Storm Valley, those who had other abilities numbered little. Most of them were versed in wind-related skills. At the same time, the Storm Battle Armor helped enhance those abilities. Therefore, when those powerful wind blades slashed at the Dino Warriors, many of them would be dismembered or lifted high into the air before plunging down to their deaths. Luo Qing had not given the order to cut the iron chains precisely because she wanted to utilize them to deal with the Dino-people. Many of them had powerful jumping abilities, and they attempted to leap over the chasm with their pure might. However, the moment they got too close to the tornado, they would be blown away and smashed to bits. Borrowing the natural forces of the tornadoes and cliffs of the Storm Valley, within a short time of the battle, over 200 Dino warriors had been killed without even putting up any resistance. Ikamine frowned as he watched his subordinates being slaughtered helplessly and ordered, "Suppressing fire." With his order, a number of bow-wielding Dino warriors stepped out and readied their bows and arrows, firing at the opposite side. The sharp bow and arrows shot towards the other side of the cliff like shooting stars, made out of Type 3 and Type 4 mutant beasts. Their sharpness was unparalleled, and with the immense strength of the Dino warriors, they could easily pierce through tanks which even heavy machine guns could not. If there were any downsides to the bow and arrows, it would be that they could not be fired out as quickly as heavy machine guns. With the rain of arrows, a number of Storm Valley warriors were nailed to the ground. In response, the rest were forced to duck behind cover. The other Dino warriors took the opportunity to attempt another scaling over the iron chains. Not long after they started to crawl, the Storm Warriors again came up to the iron chains, unleashing their different abilities. The Dino Warriors suffered another bout of casualties, with many of them dropping to the bottom of the cliff. The Dino warrior archers began to fire a flurry of arrows once more. On the Storm Warrior's end, there were a few of them who could utilize the energy shield, and they raised them up, powered by the Type 3 nuclei. A huge shield appeared, blocking the salvo of arrows. Protected by the shields, the Storm Warriors quickly came out and launched their attacks once more. When Kinken saw this, his expression turned dark. The terrain of Storm Valley was too dangerous, even harder to navigate than cracked Tooth Gorge. The natural tornadoes made it hard for them to traverse. After a short moment of silence, he gave a cool order, "Build the bone bridge." Many Dino warriors came to the cliff edge, and from their bodies, a number of bone spikes exploded out as they extended toward the other side. Over 100 Dino-people had bones bursting out of their bodies that stretched to the other side. In a few seconds, the bone bridges were formed. Dozens of them would hug and encircle one another, forming large bone nets. The other Dino warriors quickly made use of this to clamber over to the other side. With the appearance of the bone bridge, dozens of low-grade Dino-Generals quickly got up, leading 400 Dino warriors over to the other side, stepping on the blood-filled bones. At this moment, a few electromagnetic guns that had been hidden fired out continuously, blasting the bone bridges into pieces, shattering them. Just like this, they found out that the Storm Valley had many of hidden weapons and mechanisms, powerful technology that was powered by the mutant beast nuclei. However, the consumption was large, and based on the terrain of the Storm Valley, once these weapons were used, they were hard to repair and maintain. Therefore, it was under the most extreme of circumstances before these were employed. However, since it was already at such a critical juncture, they had no choice. With the mass bone bridges being destroyed, even more Dino warriors plunged to their deaths. One of the low-grade Dino-Generals was unfortunate, his movements restricted by the powerful tornado. He was then pierced by 2 electromagnetic shots, forcing him off the bone bridge, and he plummeted to his death. The battlefield was cruel, and luck played an important part. While the low-grade Dino-General might have strength similar to Zhong or Luo Qing, he still died under such circumstances. After all, a single low-grade Dino-General could possibly kill Zheng or Dao Gu on his own, but who would have expected that before he had even seen the other side of the cliff, he would have died? The remaining low-grade Dino-Generals managed to lead some of their warriors successfully to the other side. Right at this time, with a loud explosion, a number of energy bombs planted at the entrance went off, as a huge beam of light shot up to the skies. With the explosion going off, many of the Dino warriors, together with some Dino-Generals, were ripped to shreds. Kinken watched this and sucked in a breath of cold air. Had it been him who had led the frontal charge, he might have been the one to be killed. Before the dust settled, 2 low-grade Dino-Generals and 20 Dino warriors leaped out from the dust, charging into the midst of the Storm Warriors. The 2 low-grade Dino-Generals were incredibly savage, dashing into the group of Storm Warriors and quickly tore at their hearts and heads. Their 20 subordinates were no different, acting like tigers among a flock of sheep. They had suffered earlier due to the Storm Valley's defenses, but now, with the opportunity to display their might, they quickly made short work of many Storm Warriors. As they were unleashing carnage, Luo Qing readied her battle spear, her entire being exuding a raging storm, as she appeared in front of one of the low-grade Dino-Generals in a flash, and sent a thrust into his head. The low-grade Dino-General was prepared for Luo Qing's attack, as it waved its right hand in sharp claws, slashing at the incoming spear. A number of sharp wind blades exploded forth from the battle spear, tearing the right claw of the Dino-General up. He borrowed the recoil to leap backward. With a tap of Luo Qing's foot, she came right after him once more relentlessly. She needed to deal with him as soon as she could. There were plenty of experts among the Dino army. If Luo Qing was about to kill this low-grade Dino-General soon, there would be 3 others that could easily catch up and defeat her. The Dino-General raised his right elbow, a sharp bone blade striking at her battle spear. The powerful tail of the Dino-General swung towards Luo Qingqing in response. If she was struck by that sharp tail, Luo Qingqing would also be impaled by countless blades, turning into a corpse. With a wave of her battle spear, Luo Qingqing slammed the bone blade away, pulling her spear back before thrusting out at the tail of the Dino-General. The wind blades surfaced once more, tearing the tail apart in a shower of flesh and blood. Having been blocked, the other low-grade Dino-General caught up, his own elbow striking towards her face. Luo Qingqing had to use her battle spear to deflect with the power of the wind blades, causing the Dino-General attempting to rout her to be sent flying. At this time, the other one who had been forced back slightly dashed back into the battle to engage Luo Qingqing. With two opponents now, Luo Qingqing would not be able to defeat them quickly. On the other side, the 20 Dino warriors were being surrounded by the various Storm 8 greats and their subordinates. Just when it seemed that the tides of the battle were in favor, a horrifying scene that caused Luo Qingqing and her subordinates to despair happened. Over hundreds of Dino warriors had come to the cliff's edge once more, their bodies exploding, creating large bone nets that extended through the chasm. The Dino warriors started to cross, eyeing the opposite cliff with a savage glint. This time, Storm Valley had extinguished all means that they could use. Once the Dino warriors got over, they would definitely be defeated. Luo Qingqing eyed them, a sense of despair overcoming her as she prepared to shout for retreat. Ku Ikamin eyed them with a look of excitement, roaring loudly, "Conquer Storm Valley, ransack and slaughter them for 3 days." Hearing Ku Ikamin's order, the Dino warriors became frenzied with excitement, their morale surging. As Ku Ikamin was celebrating, a Dino warrior ran up to him in panic and shouted, "General, not good. Water. There's water rushing here." Chapter 829. Huge Flood. Turn the Tides. Chapter 829. Huge Flood. Turn the Tides. A huge flood was flowing out in all directions of Green Region. The moment they brushed past the Dino warriors were submerged and swept away. It was like a disaster that struck, and as the waters churned towards the direction of Storm Valley, the Dino warriors caught up along the way were swept along as well. At the same time, there were some powerful water-based mutant beasts that appeared and swallowed some of the Dino warriors. Ku Ikamin quickly rode his pterosaur and flew up in the air. With a glance, he could see the large water body inching closer towards their position, countless Dino warriors struggling under the water before being swallowed up by mutant beasts. Once the overlords of the land were submerged, they could not even best the water-based mutant beasts and were easily swallowed up. He saw the incoming flood, and his face fell. "Shit! Quick! Quick! Everyone attack! Get into Storm Valley." If they were submerged by the water, then the entire army would perish at the jaws of those water mutant beasts or swept down to the chasm below. While a few might survive on their pterosaur, the losses would be unimaginable. With the threat of imminent death, the 1,000-plus Dino warriors quickly charged to the edge of the cliff, their bodies splitting as huge bone nets stretched over towards the other side. A large number of Dino warriors began to get on the bone nets in a scramble to crawl over. It was the only way of survival, as what was awaiting them if they stayed was the flood. The Storm warriors on the other side also stepped up the ferocity of their defenses, many of them ignoring all forms of danger to activate their abilities, destroying the bone nets and sending the Dino warriors to their deaths. The Dino archers continued to fire their arrows at the Storm warriors, piercing them and nailing them to the ground. Hundreds of Storm warriors charged out from various ambush points, destroying the bone nets as best as they could, sending the Dino warriors to their death. From time to time, a number of Dino warriors would make it through successfully and began to clash with the Storm warriors. Both sides continued to fight it out with every fiber of their being, and there were casualties every second. By this time, Luo Qingqing's eyes were bloodshot from the countless slain enemies. The storm battle armor helped push her strength to the Type 5 realm, and she could dispose of any low-grade Dino-General in a single blow. She had fended off 6 low-grade Dino-Generals that had just crossed. However, under the enhancement of the storm armor, her stamina and spirit consumption was high, and she could not hold on for long. On one side, the Dino army was invading crazily, while the other consisted of the elites of the Storm Valley employing all techniques they had to defend. In terms of strength, the Storm Warriors were not a match for the Dino Warriors, but with the help of Storm Valley's terrain, it helped balance the conditions, causing both sides to be evenly matched. The cruel battle continued for a long while, as the flood got closer and closer. Huge troops of Dino warriors would be enveloped by the water and could not even put up a resistance. With a powerful tidal wave, the thousands of Dino warriors who were gathered at the edge of the cliff were swept by the flood, falling to the bottom of the cliff. In the skies, Kinken watched as the numerous Dino warriors struggled, his eyes flashing with pain as he announced bitterly, "The 3rd Battalion is over." Many of the other generals also wore expressions of pain and fury. They had almost made it to Storm Valley. If only they had another 3 hours, they could have invaded successfully. Even if the flood came then, they would have been safe on the other side. Falling from the feeling of heaven to the depths of hell, such a huge change was enough to make them throw up blood. Damn it! Damn it! Kinken roared to the skies in helplessness and fury. Long live! We're victorious! Long live Her Majesty! On the other side, the Storm Warriors who were covered in blood saw the flood washing away the Dino Warriors and immediately erupted in cheers. These Storm Warriors knew the difficulty in fending off the naturally stronger Dino Warriors. Even if they had the upper hand in the terrain, facing their relentless assault, they still suffered greatly. Had it been dragged on any longer, they would have surely lost. With the flood breaking off any possible reinforcements of the Dino warriors, the majority of the Dino army had been stuck at the edge of the cliff, thus being washed away. Those that managed to cross, other than the 6 held back by Luo Qingqing, there were only 40 others, and they were currently engaged in battle with the Storm Warriors. However, even without their reinforcements, the 40 Dino warriors were as ferocious as ever, tearing apart a few of the Storm Warriors. Under the leadership of the Storm 8 Greats, and the combined efforts of over 100 warriors, they managed to finally take down the 40 Dino warriors. After killing the 40 warriors, the Storm 8 Greats continued to lead their subordinates to take down the low-grade Dino-Generals one by one. With their combined efforts, the Dino-General held out for merely 10 seconds, and his head was destroyed by a spear thrust from Luo Qingqing. The remaining Dino-Generals increased the ferocity of their attacks, killing another 40 Storm Warriors, before finally being killed by Luo Qingqing. Long live Her Majesty! Her Majesty is always victorious. Her Majesty is always victorious. When all the Dino Warriors were dealt with, the Storm Warriors erupted in loud cheers once again. They had seen the terrifying strength of the Dino Warriors themselves. If it wasn't for Luo Qingqing holding them at bay, they would have been annihilated. He actually succeeded. In the midst of cheers, Luo Qingqing looked out towards the chasm, eyeing the countless corpses of Dino warriors, her eyes flashing with a look of surprise. If it was not for this sudden flood, Storm Valley would definitely have fallen to the invasion of the Dino army. At that time, Luo Qingqing and her subordinates could only choose to quickly get up the Storm Battleship and abandon everything in retreat. This area of abundant resources and natural defenses would then fall into the hands of the Dino race. Without it, the population on the Storm Battleship would not be able to survive for long. Haishi looked at the remnants of the battlefield and could not help but sigh. He actually succeeded. What a person! How did they do it? Zhong had actually directed such an amount of water from the Green River in these 2 days, rocking Haishi's beliefs. She had not thought it possible. Luo Qingqing nodded, her eyes flashing with curiosity as well. The flood continued to flow unhindered throughout Green Region, causing a number of Dino warriors, mutant beasts and dinosaurs to be enveloped and swept along, turning the entire place into a submerged region. In the waters, a Type 5 Diplodocus was currently swimming lazily, looking like a floating mountain. Beside it, a Type 4 crocodile snapping turtle, and in the air, a mythical and enormous green bird was soaring. On the back of the Type 5 Diplodocus, there were two women and a man, precisely Zhong's gang. Zhong sat on top of Type 5 Mount Tai's back and looked down, discovering many of the Dino warriors struggling in the water, while water-based mutant beasts swam up and consumed them. Behind Zhong, Mei'er and Han Zixin were looking at him with complicated gazes, their hearts in turmoil. They had not expected Zhong to be successful in routing the water flow. Initially, with the ice blocks, the collected water had been little. However, with Type 5 Mount Tai's strength, Zhong forcefully destroyed the natural dam of Green River, causing that heaven calamity flood. A Type 5 Diplodocus was truly a dangerous weapon, with the ability to destroy an entire faction. When the two ladies had seen Zhong summon Mount Tai out, their eyes almost fell out their sockets. Mount Tai continued to traverse through the submerged lands leisurely. From time to time, it would open its huge mouth to draw in a deep gulp, absorbing dozens of Dino warriors into its mouth. With a forceful crunch, the unfortunate Dino warriors would be crushed into meat and blood. Even Type 4 Turtle was also enjoying itself by gobbling a number of Dino warriors. Inside the Green River, there were many ferocious mutant beasts. Once they were unleashed out in Green Region, they immediately went for the Dino warriors. These are Type 3 Divine Warriors, their energy raw and pure. To these mutant beasts, they were a delicious source of nutrients and way to evolve. Hence, the beasts aimed for the Dino warriors to consume them. Chapter 830, Clash of the Titans. Chapter 830, Clash of the Titans. Other than those Dino-people, many other land-based mutant beasts also became targets for the water-based mutant beasts. Within the waters, one would see various Type 2 saber-toothed tigers, Type 2 direwolves, Type 2 mutant tigers, and other creatures being assaulted by various mutant lobsters, mutant prawns, mutant crabs, even mutant piranhas. These overlords on land could only struggle futilely in the water, exhibiting only about 10% or 20% of their prowess. Unfortunately, they were consumed helplessly. The entire Green Region had become some form of hunting ground, except that this time, the hunters were not the Dino race, but the aquatic mutant beasts, while the prey was everything else, including humans. Zhong broke the dam of Green River to flood the Dino army, but it also caused countless humans to suffer due to the catastrophic scope of the flood. As Zhong sat atop the head of Mount Tai, he looked towards the distance coldly. He could see the equally large Type 5 Triceratops atop the water, standing firmly as well, walking slowly but steadily towards the direction of the Stegosaurus kingdom. On it, there were the upper echelons deployed for the mission this time, 36 Type 5 Divine Warriors. Other than them, there were also hundreds of low-grade Dino-Generals and over 3,000 Dino Warriors. Just the forces crawling on this Type 5 Triceratops was enough to deal devastating damage to the Saint Clan of the Second World. Around the Type 5 Triceratops, there were hundreds of pterosaurs, each of them with a low-grade Dino-General riding on top that was keeping a wary eye on their surroundings. There were even two other Type 5 Divine Warriors on their own pterosaur. The frame of the Type 5 Triceratops was massive, thus the flood was only able to reach its knees, but it was enough to make it hard to move smoothly. A few Type 4 aquatic mutant beasts swam close to the Type 5 Triceratops, eyeing it with wild looks, but not daring to make any moves. The might of a Type 5 mutant beast was too terrifying, especially such gigantic ones. While the flood was enough to affect their combat powers, it was not enough to submerge them fully, thus not causing any major life-threatening conditions. They continued to stare at the Type 5 Triceratops while circling it constantly, seeking for an opportunity to strike. While a Type 5 mutant beast had terrifying strength, the Flood had diminished its combat prowess slightly, causing some of these water-based Type 4 mutant beasts to be bolder. If they could consume it, these Type 4 mutant beasts would take a huge leap in their evolution. Zhong stared at the Type 5 Triceratops and pointed at it while ordering Mount Tai, "Go kill it." Type 5 Mount Tai immediately began dashing towards the Type 5 Triceratops. The various mutant beasts circling the Type 5 Triceratops quickly got away, not daring to get in the conflict between two Type 5 behemoths. The various pterosaurs and their Dino warriors quickly discovered Mount Tai's strange actions. Under the lead of their two Type 5 divine warriors, they swooped over swiftly. The two Type 5 divine warriors had already prepared their bows at the maximum tension. In a flash, two sharp bone arrows shot down towards Mount Tai, causing two bloody holes in its head. Their attack was enough to break through even the new scale that Mount Tai had recently grown. At the same time, those arrows were covered with a powerful toxin called the God's Annihilation Poison. Once injured, it would affect the recovery abilities of the Type 5 mutant beasts. After all, the toxin was concocted from various poison attribute Type 5 mutant beasts, and it was incredibly lethal. On the back of a pterosaur, many low-grade Dino-Generals had also knocked their bows, firing sharp bone arrows towards Mount Tai. The majority were easily deflected by the new scales on Mount Tai's body. However, some were accurate enough to pierce the wounds of Mount Tai, aggravating the injuries. Mount Tai stared up at the skies and roared out in fury. Although it possessed immense strength and could level an entire building with ease, it could not do anything about those aerial mutant beasts. Its innate ability was its strength, not wind nor ice or other elements. The Type 3 pterosaurs, together with mid-grade Dino-Generals, were a powerful combination, hunting various preys. However, they could not do anything to Type 5 mutant beasts with elemental attributes. Intelligent life forms tend to be weaker in terms of strength and abilities, but their gap in strength could be covered by their wits and other abilities. This was the terrifying feature of intelligent life forms. At this time, a powerful tornado blew past, which was the effect of Greenie in the skies, activating its innate ability. With the roaring winds, Greenie's speed was pushed to 2.5 Mach, even faster than the Type 4 Flamebird. The speedy Greenie instantly swooped down on one of the Type 3 pterosaur that was carrying a Type 5 Divine Warrior, flapping its wings. Powerful wind blades shot out, slicing the Type 3 pterosaur in two. The Type 5 Divine Warrior could only fall helplessly down to the ground. Greenie did not chase after the plunging Type 5 Divine Warrior, instead tearing through the flock of pterosaurs. Each time it pecked, a Type 3 pterosaur would be killed, and the Dino Warrior on top of it would plunge together with the corpse. After consuming a Type 5 nucleus, although it had not yet reached the Type 5 realm, Greenie had already evolved to a stage where it was more powerful than most Type 4 mutant beasts. Those Type 3 pterosaurs could not do anything to it. In the skies, the pterosaurs dropped like rain. The pterosaurs that the Type 5 Divine Warriors were riding on were easily killed by Greenie, and they plunged down from the skies. However, the physique of the two mid-grade Dino-Generals was truly perverse, not dying even from falling from such a height. At this moment, a huge tail over 100 tons came slapping down towards the two mid-grade Dino-Generals. The moment they plunged into the water, their movement speed was slowed to a crawl. Eyeing the incoming tail, their bodies radiated with their radiance of life, reaching out with their hands to try and block the blow. Type 5 Mount Tai's tail swung down viciously, instantly destroying the radiance of life, slapping the two into minced meat. Type 4 Turtle immediately drew a deep breath, sucking in both corpses. Had they been on normal land, Mount Tai would not be able to do anything to them because its speed was too slow. However, in water, they were lambs awaiting slaughter. A single slap of its tail was enough to crush the both of them. To a Type 5 human, these Type 5 Dino-Generals were tough, but compared to a Type 5 mutant beast, they were truly weak. Mei'er's eyes flashed with disbelief as she cried out, "Those two mid-grade Dino-Generals just died like that? For real? Did my eyes go blind?" Han Zhen continued to mutter with part joy and part disbelief, "It's real. It's real. Two mid-grade Dino-Generals were killed. They're dead." Those mid-grade Dino-Generals were Type 5 existences. Even Luo Qing, with her storm armor, might not be able to handle them. And yet, two of them had died just like that, causing Mei'er and Han Zhen to be thoroughly shocked. These Type 5 existences were top figures among the Dino race and were invincible existences. Zhong did not seem to mind their shock, as he pulled out his electromagnetic gun to fire at the Triceratops. A number of beams shot out, blasting above the body of the Triceratops, killing the Dino warriors gathered on top. At the same time, some of the shots managed to pierce the scales of the Triceratops, causing some bloody holes. However, the recovery of the Type 5 mutant beast was terrifying, quickly regenerating at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhong continued to kill the Dino warriors in an unbridled fashion while absorbing their life force through his god and devil imprint. Faced with such an assault, the Type 5 Triceratops was enraged and quickly turned, stomping on the submerged ground, and dashed towards Mount Tai. Mount Tai also began to launch its own charge towards the Triceratops, two island-sized behemoths charging at each other. The tremors and motions caused the water to billow out in waves as the two beasts got closer to each other. Right as they were about to get close, Mount Tai suddenly swung its massive tail, sending out a big wave as it smashed towards the head of the Triceratops viciously. Chapter 831, Type 5 Mount Tai's Might. Chapter 831, Type 5 Mount Tai's Might. The huge tail of the Type 5 Diplodocus was incredibly powerful. With a single swing, the entire Type 5 Triceratops was sent tumbling backward, the intense force reverberating through its body. The dozens of Dino warriors were all flung off, landing in the water. In a clash of these two beasts, although there were no other behemoths, there were plenty of aquatic mutant beasts awaiting in the water. The moment those Dino warriors landed in the water, these aquatic mutant beasts pounced forward. In a breath, the screams of the Dino warriors rang out. They might be the terrifying overlords of the land, but in the water, they were lambs waiting for slaughter. As for the 36 mid-grade Dino-Generals who had Type 5 Divine Warrior strength, they had quickly jumped up into the sky when the two Titan-sized beasts clashed, leaping towards the back of Mount Tai. On the ground, these mid-grade Dino-Generals were ferocious fighters. However, if they ended up in the water, then their combat prowess would diminish, and might end up as food for the aquatic mutant beasts. Their only path of survival was the back of the Type 5 Diplodocus, and to kill it. Beside Mount Tai, Type 4 Turtle had opened its mouth and activated its innate ability, sending a gust of freezing air towards all 36 Dino-Generals. Kacha! Kacha! When assaulted by the freezing breath, thick layers of ice started to form on the bodies of the Dino-Generals. They also started to fall towards the ground. The bright glow of the radiance of life shone from the bodies of the mid-grade Dino-Generals, breaking out of the ice. However, these Dino-Generals were still in midair, and their speed was affected. It was right at this moment that Mount Tai swung its tail viciously towards these Dino-Generals. In the blink of an eye, 6 Type 5 Divine Warriors were smacked into a meat paste by the sheer force, shooting towards the water. As a Type 5 mutant beast, Mount Tai's attack style was simple, but with the power and force its body contained, its tail could flatten even some Type 6 Divine Warriors that had no special abilities, not to mention Type 5 Divine Warriors. As for the rest of the mid-grade Dino-Generals that had been frozen due to Turtle's ability, they had become perfect targets, and Mount Tai continued to swing its tail once more, slamming into another 5 of them, blasting these seemingly invincible existences away. These 36 Dino-Generals were recognized as the top experts of Stegosaurus Kingdom, with fearsome speed and strength, coupled with their terrifying physique and sharp bone blades. They could suppress any other similar rank opponents, yet they lacked the ability to fly. Thus, they were helpless in mid-air. Mount Tai's body was huge, but its swinging of tail was extremely accurate. As it continued to swing it about, it would turn more of these Dino-Generals into meat paste. "Get into the water!" The leader of the operation, Kinken, roared out in rage, and using a secret technique, he plunged downwards even faster into the waters. Once he landed in the water, his legs suddenly glowed with the white radiance of life, supporting himself on the surface of the water. The remaining Dino-Generals seemed to stir from their shock and quickly employed similar techniques. They pushed themselves to the water and supported their own, standing on the water. Making use of the radiance of life to support themselves on the water, this was a high-level utilization of skill and control. Only Type 5 Divine Warriors were able to do so. At the same time, since the radiance of life represented the usage of their stored life force, unless it was a critical situation, few would choose to do so. Humans could step on water easily by equipping the sun armor and relying on the mutant beast nuclei. That was using equipment to help. Even Zhong would not be able to do so without relying on equipment or his abilities. The moment one Dino-General gained his footing, he quickly fled towards the distance. Mount Tai's massive tail came swinging down viciously towards a mid-grade Dino-General, only to smack into nothing. The mid-grade Dino-General had flickered and left the area of impact within a split second. The intense battle had lasted for only a few seconds, but in those seconds, 30 Dino-Generals had already been flattened into meat paste. At the same time, the Type 5 Triceratops had already recovered from Mount Tai's attack. As a Type 5 mutant beast, it was naturally not so easy to kill it. Its ability to tank damage was also incredible. The moment it recovered, it lowered its head, while its limbs dug into the water-filled ground, causing waves to spread out. It then charged towards Mount Tai. Mount Tai swung its huge tail horizontally, slamming into the body of the Type 5 Triceratops. The Triceratops shuddered as it spat out fresh blood. However, it took the hit straight on, enduring the pain, and dug its horns into the body of Mount Tai. The moment those sharp spikes pierced Mount Tai's body, blood shot out from the wounds in powerful spurts, dyeing the water red, as various mutant beasts came fighting over the precious blood. Mount Tai let out an earth-shaking roar of pain, its huge tail slamming into the Triceratops incessantly. Each time it struck, the Type 5 Triceratops would spit out more blood. However, the Triceratops continued to withstand the pain while pushing forwards, digging its horns further into the body of Mount Tai. The combat style of intelligent life forms would be vastly different. As for mutant beasts, while it was cruel and gory, it was exceedingly simple, because it was a pure contest of strength and flesh. Mount Tai continued to roar in pain while slamming its tail continuously, both parties caught in an impasse. The mid-grade Dino-General Kinken saw this, and his eyes flashed with gloating joy. Good opportunity. Everyone, go up and kill that beast. If Mount Tai did not have an enemy in these flooded lands, Kinken and the rest would definitely have to flee and hide. However, with the Type 5 Triceratops engaging it, it was a good opportunity for these mid-grade Dino-Generals. The moment he gave that order, the surviving Type 5 Dino-Generals shot out with their radiance of life, charging towards Mount Tai. Zhong was on the back of Turtle, and he frowned when he caught sight of those 6 Dino-Generals. They're here. Damn bastards, there are still 6 alive. Due to the intense battle between the two behemoths, each time they clashed, there would be a powerful shockwave, forcing Zhong's party to get on Turtle's back. Zhong patted Turtle's head and ordered, "Attack." Type 4 Turtle immediately channeled its innate ability, opening its huge mouth to spit out a cold air towards those 6 Dino-Generals. The innate abilities of Type 4 mutant beasts could be fearsome. Everywhere the frosty air touched, it would freeze, turning into large chunks of ice. The faces of the 6 mid-grade Dino-Generals fell in horror as they hurried to get out of the way. One of them reacted too slow and was immediately frozen solid. At the instant he was frozen, an electromagnetic beam shot out, slamming into the body of the mid-grade Dino-General. The ice shattered, while the Dino-General spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. There was a huge wound at his right chest. The injured Dino-General shot a glare at Zhong. With a tap of his foot, his radiance of life glowed brightly as he fled the area. His injuries were not light, and in the waters where the conditions were disadvantageous, it would only be dangerous if he continued to battle. His experience was abundant, thus he would not choose to fight. Type 5 Divine Warriors are truly terrifying. Zhong stared at the fleeing Dino-General with a look of shock. Earlier, that was the combined strongest strikes of Turtle and himself, and yet, it only injured the Dino-General. Had it been on land, he would not even have the chance to shoot at the enemy. Kill those humans. Kinken had finally caught sight of Zhong, his gaze frosty as he ordered. He knew instinctively that if they did not deal with Zhong, they would have no chance to help the Triceratops. With Kinken's order, the Dino-Generals immediately charged forth with savage glints in their eyes, making for Zhong. Mei'er saw the approaching Dino-Generals and was frightened by their aura, a chill overcoming her heart as she exclaimed, "Let's flee!" Chapter 832. Intense Battle with a Mid-Grade Dino-General. Chapter 832. Intense Battle with a Mid-Grade Dino-General. Mei'er might be a Type 4 expert. However, her strength was in management of affairs and plotting. Combat was not her forte, and seeing the ferocious expressions of those approaching Dino-Generals, she was filled with fear. As for Han Zixian, even though she was one of Storm 8 greats, she was also intimidated by the aura of the Dino-Generals. However, she maintained her grip on her weapon, standing steadfast by Zhong's side with a pale face, intending to guard him. In these 2 days, Zhong's miraculous ability to destroy the natural dam of the Green River, while summoning mutant beasts that were increasingly more terrifying than the other, had already caused Han Zixian to fully accept Zhong's strength. Furthermore, with Luo Qingqing's order, even if she had to die for Zhong, she would not frown. That was because she was a warrior, one of the best and resolute ones that would not lose to any men. Zhong stared at Han Zixian with a tinge of regret. If only she was my subordinate, that would be awesome. Han Zixian was so committed to helping Zhong purely because of Luo Qingqing's orders. If Zhong were to go against Storm Valley, she would point her spear back at Zhong. He threw all these distractions out of his mind, and his gaze fell on the Dino-Generals. He then patted Turtle's head gently. Turtle opened its huge mouth as a powerful frost spread out, enveloping the Dino-Generals. The 5 of them were already prepared. The moment Turtle opened its mouth, they had dispersed in various directions. Turtle's frost managed to freeze only one of the Dino-Generals. The other 4 had seized the opportunity to wrap themselves in their own radiance of life, turning into 4 beams of light that shot on top of Turtle. Zhong had already donned the light gold sun battle armor, the Type 5 nucleus glowing brightly. The energy was coursing through his body, pushing him to the peak of the Type 5 realm. The Type 4 nuclei sun battle armor would only push Zhong's strength to the mid of Type 5 realm. As for the light gold battle armor, it could continue to push Zhong's abilities beyond the Type 5 realm. It was just that his body might not be able to handle, just like how Zheng's body started to collapse on itself. Zhong's current physique could still handle the peak of the Type 5 realm. If it had been any other human, The max was the mid-realm of Type 5. When his strength reached that level, Zhong's eyes narrowed as he activated his gravity manipulation, causing a powerful gravitational force to weigh down on the 4 mid-grade generals. They were caught in the sweeping force, and their movements faltered for a moment. Immediately, Turtle opened its huge mouth to spit out countless ice picks, ice blades, ice arrows towards 2 of the mid-grade Dino-Generals. Under the buffeting storm of ice, even a Type 4 Divine Warrior would be torn to shreds. Facing the sudden assault, the 2 mid-grade generals wielded their bone spears and struck out at the impending rain of ice. Some of the sharp ice picks managed to pierce their body, causing them to be riddled with injuries. With a single step, Zhong's body flickered, conjuring 3 clones, each of them wielding the Sun Battle Spear as their bodies were enveloped with dark Do Chi. They appeared in front of one of the Dino-Generals and thrust out. The mid-grade Dino-General was in mid-air and could not utilize any force to dodge. His eyes flashed with a fierce light, bringing his own spear to strike at Zhong. Zhong and the mid-grade Dino-General came to blows, causing a powerful clash and shockwave to spread out. Strong. These Dino-people are truly freaks. Zhong felt his hand turn numb from the recoil, the battle spear in his hand almost knocked away. His heart was thus filled with shock. As for the mid-grade Dino-General, due to him being in mid-air, he had been knocked flying a few dozen meters, landing beside Turtle. Turtle immediately opened its mouth to draw a powerful breath, causing the Dino-General to fly into its mouth. With a sickening crunch, blood flowed out of Turtle's mouth, and the Dino-General was thus consumed. After sending one Dino-General to his doom, Zhong turned around and noticed Kinken already on Turtle's back. Kinken stared back at Zhong, his killing intent billowing. Without any words, he immediately shot towards Zhong. In a breath, he appeared in front of him, sending out a powerful thrust towards him. Zhong raised his own battle spear to meet the incoming strike. A powerful force traveled from the point of contact, sending Zhong's Sun Battle Spear flying away. Kinken's cold glare was fixed on Zhong, his left hand punching towards Zhong's chest with a sharp bone blade. Zhong twisted his body at an unbelievable angle. However, the blade still slashed past his chest, tearing the Type 4 mutant sea snake hide, as well as slicing through the level 5 defense vest, leaving a wound which exposed the bones. At the moment Zhong evaded the killing blow, Kinken's sharp tail came swinging at Zhong. Zhong was caught in a difficult position, unable to dodge further. His left hand opened wide, and 7 shields of light flashed out, blocking in front of him. That sharp tail of Kinken slammed into the energy shields, destroying them one by one at the blink of an eye. However, with each minor impediment, it bought Zhong some time to breath, and he made use of the opportunity to retreat backward. Kinken lashed out in a roundhouse kick, his legs slamming into Zhong's body, together with the sharp spikes at his foot. The blow connected with Zhong's chest, tearing apart his stomach, while sending Zhong shooting back dozens of meters, fresh blood and parts of his broken organs splattering out. Fucking strong. Mid-grade Dino-Generals are truly sick existences. After receiving this single kick, Zhong's chest was split open, his inner organs rattled and injured. If it was not for the insane defense of the Sun battle armor, he might have already been split in two. The ferocity of a mid-grade Dino-General was revealed for him to see, completely suppressing Zhong even when utilizing the Sun battle armor. Every mid-grade Dino-General was a Type 5 Divine Warrior, an expert that had crawled through battles to reach where they were. It was not advisable for Zhong to engage them in any form of melee combat. They were squashed to death in front of Mount Tai not because they were weak, but because Mount Tai itself was perverse in terms of strength as well. Since Kinken had injured Zhong gravely, his eyes flashed fiercely, and his entire person charged towards Zhong like a cannonball. All of a sudden, a large hole appeared in midair, as 10 sharp-boned spikes shot out from the void, aiming for Kinken. His eyes flashed, and he grabbed out with his right hand quickly, twisting forcefully, pulling white bones from within and lashing out with a kick. With a loud crunch and countless shattered bone parts, White Bone's entire lower body was destroyed by Kinken. He then tossed casually, sending White Bones hurtling towards the water like a broken rag doll. Kinken had just incapacitated White Bones when Zhong channeled his devil flame as a beam of blazing flames shot towards him. Frowning, he could feel a sense of danger from the red-hot flames. He tapped his foot and retreated explosively. After all, the extension of the devil flame could not compare to the speed of such a Type 5 divine warrior. Right then, a green shadow swooped down from the skies at an unbelievable speed, slashing towards Kinken's body. The powerful Type 4 claws pierced his body. It was precisely greeny, its speed raised to the maximum, exceeding even Kinken's reaction time. This injury was grievous to Kinken as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He swung his spiked tail towards Greeny. At the same time, he channeled his radiance of light in a bright flash, combined with the strike of his tail, causing one of Greeny's claws to break away in a shower of blood. Greeny was weak in defense in the first place. Although its claws were sharp, they were weak as well, and could not withstand such a blow from a peak Type 5 expert. Breaking one of the claws, Kinken swung once more, breaking the other, and he tumbled to the ground, escaping from Greeny's clutches amidst heavy wounds. Chapter 833, Killing Kinken. Chapter 833, Killing Kinken. Having suffered such an attack from the Dino-General, Greeny also howled out in misery, flapping its wings to soar higher. One of its claws had been destroyed. Even with the regenerative power of the Type 4 mutant beast, it would take another 1 or 2 days to recover. Meanwhile, its combat prowess was definitely affected. Kinken tumbled on the ground once before getting up immediately. At this time, Zhong had already appeared in front of him with his battle spear, thrusting viciously. Kinken's eyes flashed dangerously, sending an elbow strike. His sharp-boned elbow slammed into Zhong's body, causing his body to crumble and disappear in a puff. Illusion. Kinken was shocked. Right behind him, another battle spear shot out towards his back, filled with Zhong's power. At the same time, his body was weighed down by a sudden gravitational force. Kinken was also an experienced fighter. Without even looking, it swung its sharp tail towards the direction Zhong was at. Zhong's eyes flashed fiercely as the battle spear was set ablaze with his devil flame, sending a powerful blow towards Kinken's chest. The devil flame instantly enveloped the Dino-General. At the same time, Zhong was slammed in the chest by the sharp tail. The force, combined with the sharp spikes, were enough to tear through the sun battle armor, piercing into his body. At the same time, the immense force forced him a few hundred meters away. Zhong tumbled for a few rounds, spitting out a large amount of blood. Kinken was not any better off. His body was enveloped in flames as he screamed in pain. The radiance of life continued to glow, blocking the burning flames. Mei'er, who had been hiding one side, saw Zhong being sent flying, and her eyes flashed with fear. She turned around to run towards Turtle. Han Zixin looked at Kinken and his radiance, her eyes flashing with a decisive look. Her storm armor glowed as the Type 3 nucleus released its power. Under the enhancement, her strength was raised to the threshold of Type 4. She readied her battle spear and charged right behind Kinken, thrusting her spear into his heart. His heart had been destroyed, the radiance of life around him crumbling. The devil flames then continued to consume his body, causing him to scream. As he screamed, his latent combat ability lashed out, as he sent a fist toward Han Zixin's chest. The terrifying strength burst out, penetrating through her storm battle armor, sending her flying back dozens of meters. Damn it! How can I die here? How can I die at the hands of these ants? I'm not willing. As he screamed, the devil flames on Kinken's body continued to burn as he turned into a pile of ash, while a large amount of life force went into Zhong. Congratulations, you have gained vitality plus 30, endurance plus 20. Congratulations on killing a mid-grade Dino-General. You have gained plus 3 skill points. Since you have completed your objective, you can also reopen the gates to the second world. The moment the life force of the Type 5 Kinken entered Zhong's body, a number of notifications rang out. At the same time, with the enhancement, Zhong's regeneration kicked in and his wounds began to heal. The Type 5 Divine Warrior's life force was even more precious than the meat of a Type 5 mutant beast. With its nourishment, Zhong's regeneration could exhibit its fullest potential, his wounds healing at a visible rate. Once he could move, Zhong flashed and appeared beside Han Zixian. Currently, her chest had been blasted wide open by Kinken, and one could see her destroyed organs and flesh. It was a terrifying sight, and she was not far from death. Although she was a peak Type 3 Divine Warrior, she did not have Zhong's regeneration. To most normal people, having their chest burst open and their organs destroyed would be extremely fatal. Han Zixian's eyes were half closed, and she could not say anything. She just looked at him, a look of comfort flashing past her eyes. At least she had completed her mission as a warrior. The life force of humans was not comparable to Dino-people. Kinken was able to scream and make noise even with his heart penetrated. As for humans, once their hearts were pierced, most would die on the spot. Other than some special cases like Zhong, or those who had life extension-related abilities. Zhong grabbed her pale hands and barked out, "Don't give up. With me around, you will not die." To those heavily injured, willpower was an important factor. If they did not have the intention to fight for their lives, then even the most miraculous medicine would not be able to drag them away from death. With that, Zhong then pulled out the vial of the Type 9 expert's blood. He took one in his mouth and quickly bent down to kiss Han Zixian on her lips, passing the drop of blood through her throat. A Type 9 Divine Warrior was extremely powerful, reaching the levels of godlike existences. Each of them would be mythical or legendary characters. Their blood held precious and valuable opportunities. To lower-level life forms, it was a sort of miracle drug. The moment the blood entered Han Zixian's body, a large life force coursed through her body, instantly repairing her broken parts, healing the various wounds and injuries. Even her eyes regained some form of spirit. When she regained her energy, she saw Zhong kissing her, and her eyes flashed with embarrassment, and her face flushed. Zhong lifted his head and saw this valiant female warrior, her expression one of shyness now, and his heart could not help but skip a beat. However, he recovered quickly and barked, "Mei'er, come over. Take care of Han Zixian. If she dies, you can forget about living also." Mei'er heard his tone, and her face changed, gritting her teeth to reply, "Yes." She was clear that Zhong was someone who would kill without batting an eyelid. If she dared to disobey him, she might really incur his wrath. Even with her looks, it would not help her one bit. After she was called over, Zhong gently placed the brave Han Zixian down, while allocating the 3 skill points to his Dark Dochi, reaching the +2 stage. With a tap of his foot, he charged over to Turtle. There were still 3 mid-grade Dino-Generals that were not dead. If any of them were to get on Turtle's back, their party would perish. The combat abilities of a mid-grade Dino-General was too terrifying. Even with his light gold sun armor, he was struggling against them. He swiftly arrived at Turtle's head, only to see Turtle opening its jaws to fire out an icy storm at the 3 Dino-Generals. They were still on the water, trying to dodge Turtle's attacks. At the same time, they were trying to get closer. Turtle was extremely crafty, though. As it spat out the ice picks, it would retreat slowly. Each time the 3 Dino-Generals got closer, it would then utilize its innate ability to fire out a snowstorm to retreat further. Zhong heaved a sigh of relief. As long as they had no way of getting up on Turtle, he had a chance. All of a sudden, a large tentacle came bursting out of the water, coiling around one of the Dino-Generals, pulling him downwards in a swift motion. Shock flashed across the face of the Dino-General, and his body burst out with his radiance of life. He asserted all his might and caused his bone blade to twist, slashing the tentacle into pieces. It was just that once the tentacle was dealt with, another tentacle came slithering up, twisting around the Dino-General and pulling him further into the water. Both parties were engaged in a never-ending tug of war. The other two Dino-Generals exchanged looks, both of them feeling fear. In these waters, danger was everywhere. If they were not careful, they would be ambushed by the aquatic mutant beasts. Right at this time, the humongous Type 5 Triceratops shuddered before slumping into the water, a large amount of blood pouring out of its mouth. Mount Tai had slammed its tail viciously in a bid to quickly defeat the Triceratops. At the end of the day, Mount Tai held the upper hand. While the Triceratops was also an Overlord-class Titan, if it had been on dry land, it could seriously injure Mount Tai in a charge. However, the waters caused its speed to be reduced drastically. Although it had managed to injure Mount Tai, it was not enough to damage it seriously. Instead, it was injured severely. Chapter 834. The Dino-people retreats. Chapter 834. The Dino-people retreats. Seeing the fall of their Type 5 Triceratops, the remaining two Dino-Generals exchanged a look and quickly fled as their bodies turned into beams of life. On such terrain, they were not a match for Type 5 mutant beast. Zhong heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that. Turtle had no way to continue utilizing its innate ability. If they were not careful, as long as one of the Dino-General got on the back of Turtle, it would be a disaster for them. Zhong's gaze landed on the body of the Type 5 Triceratops, his eyes burning with desire. It was a powerful tool that could be used to break into cities. The moment it started its charge, any tanks and landmine formation would be destroyed by its pure might. Right now, Zhong had two Type 5 nuclei. One was to power the light gold sun armor, while another could be turned into a Type 5 puppet rune, meant to control Type 5 life forms. Zhong flickered forward, landing on Mount Tai's body. Mount Tai was intelligent and seemed to sense Zhong's intention. The moment Zhong got on its back, it quickly opened its huge jaws to bite down viciously on the head of the Triceratops before twisting forcefully. A huge, bloody hole was torn out, and Mount Tai's tongue reached in to gobble up the contents, including the Type 5 nucleus. Zhong stared at this speechlessly, slapping down on Mount Tai's head in anger, but could not bring himself to say anything. All of Zhong's tamed beasts would consume their enemies' nuclei to push their own evolution, while he, the master, only got their blood and flesh. However, at the end of the day, these mutant beasts had used their own strength to defeat their enemies. Thus Zhong could not snatch their prize as well. After swallowing the Triceratops' nucleus, Mount Tai lowered its head to begin consuming the corpse. Turtle also swam over, munching on the corpse. The meat of these Type 5 mutant beasts was after all-powerful nutrients to other mutant beasts. The other aquatic Type 4 mutant beasts eyed the corpse for a good while, before dispersing helplessly. Zhong pulled out his tablet and ordered by E. I wonder how the Vulture Valley is now. By E. Activate the Storm Battleship and control it to fly here. Give Luo Qing an hour to prepare. As a Super A, by E had already infiltrated the central computer of the Storm Battleship, replacing the authority of the ship. Bai E replied, Understood. Not long after, Bai E appeared on the display of the central computer back in Storm Valley. Warning! Warning! The battleship will be moving out after an hour. Everyone, please make your preparations. Please make your preparations. Luo Qing was in the captain room of the battleship, when she saw the sudden appearance of Bai, a complicated look appeared on her face. He's actually still alive. There was a manual and automatic mode of the battleship. If the central computer was affected by some invaders for whatever reason, the manual operation would come in handy. Of course, within the whole Storm Valley, there was no one capable enough to pilot this battleship. However, Luo Qingqing liked to stay in the captain's room. It was equipped with the decent communication equipment, and she could pass her orders from here. She immediately gave her order, "Heed my command. Everyone is to return to their room. Prepare for takeoff." Hearing Luo Qingqing's order, the people busying on the ship quickly returned to their respective places. After an hour, the ship glowed once, spitting out a large amount of gas, its speed gradually increasing as it shot into the skies. Vulture Valley was an elevated place in Green region, thus it was currently surrounded by the flood, and the people trapped within the valley, but otherwise fine. Han Xiong had led a dozen soldiers to the edge of the valley, eyeing the flood below that seemed to have no end, her brows furrowed. She suddenly asked Ma Lei, "What's the situation inside?" Ma Lei responded seriously, "It's still considered somewhat stable. Previously, after leader executed those rebels, I think no one dares to act up now. However, it is likely temporary. Once there's an issue with the ration, things might fall apart." At this time, the four heads of Vulture Valley were Han Xiong, Sun Lan Lan, Xiao Yun, and Ma Lei. Although Ma Lei was slightly unhappy that Han Xiong was above him in position, seeing the Type 4 Divine Warrior Boleus guarding her, he knew that Han Xiong was more important than him to Yu Zhong. Thus, he could only obediently be her assistant. Han Xiong considered it all quietly. When Yu Zhong had left, and she was left in charge, she finally realized how difficult it was to become a proper leader in this cruel world. Suddenly, the surface of the lake water churned, and a dozen 20 long mutant water snakes broke through, crawling up the city wall. 30 Type 2 Divine Warriors rushed up the city wall, wearing their sun battle armor. They wielded powerful bone bows and nocked their arrows. Within seconds, the sharp bone arrows showed towards the dozens of mutant water snakes. The bone arrows were filled with power, piercing the heads of the mutant water snakes. However, their life force was strong. Even after being buffeted by a number of arrows, they did not die. Instead, they charged forwards with renewed fury. The 30 warriors had to fire another 3 volleys to take down 2 mutant water snakes. Although their strength had been pushed to the Type 3 stage, their accuracy was poor, missing the vital spots of the mutant beasts. Yu Zhong had conquered a number of tribes, and after cleansing those traitors during the uprising, the total number of elites left in his troops were little. There were only about 30 Type 2 Divine Warriors. Even after the enhancement of the battle armor, there was still some weakness. Eyeing the incoming horde of mutant water snakes, a lot of people lost their composure as fear started to cloud their mind. If the mutant beasts were to break through, it would be a disaster. At this time, Boleus waved his large beast bones and leaped down the city wall. The moment he landed, he appeared right on top of a mutant water snake, smashing down viciously, causing the entire head to cave in. He continued to weave in and out of the horde, the beast bones in his hands smashing out from time to time, directly killing mutant water snakes with every hit. Soon, beneath the walls, there was a large pile of snake corpses. After he was done, Boleus flashed back up the city wall, standing quietly behind Han Xiong. Seeing how he had casually taken care of the horde, everyone heaved a sigh of relief, their gazes towards him filled with respect and admiration. At this moment, the waters at a distance started to churn, and a huge Type 4 mutant water snake broke out of the surface of the water. Beside the Type 4 mutant snake, countless Type 3 and Type 2 mutant water snakes formed a disgustingly massive horde as they swarmed over. When the people on the wall saw the sudden appearance of these snakes, their eyes were all filled with shock. If these snakes broke through the wall, the people within the city walls were sure to perish. Boleus took one look and barked coldly, "Miss Han Xiong, please make preparations to leave with Miss Sun Lon Lon. I will protect the two of you in your retreat." Hearing his words, everyone's expression turned pale, their morale almost collapsing. Even Ma Lei and Xiao Yun were no exception. Han Xiong's expression sunk as she rebuked in a righteous manner. "Mr. Boleus, there are over hundreds of thousands of people in this valley. You're actually thinking of fleeing without fighting? Aren't you ashamed?" Boleus replied coldly, "There's only so much I can do. The strongest mutant beast is likely a Type 4 mutant beast based on my conjectures. With my abilities, there's only a 5% chance of winning it. However, there are so many other beasts aiding it. Thus my success rate has been reduced to 0%. The task that Master Yu Zhong had delegated to me was to keep you and Miss Sun Lon Lon safe. I can sacrifice myself to protect you, but the life and death of everyone else are not within my consideration. If orders are to be changed, it has to be done by Master Yu Zhong." After Boleus had been subdued by the puppet rune, he had become a tool that only knew how to listen to orders. He would not listen to anyone else. Ma Lei took a long, deep breath. "Forget it. Han Xiong, you and Sun Lon Lon better prepare to leave. You guys have done your best." Although he was not willing, he had no way of overpowering Boleus. Thus he could only comply. Han Xiong gritted her teeth and exclaimed, "I won't leave. I will live and die together with Vulture Valley. Like this, Boleus, you will have to stay and defend as well. Because your mission is to protect me, right? If I die, you will fail our mission as well." Chapter 835, Eradicating the Type 4 Mutant Water Snake. Chapter 835, Eradicating the Type 4 Mutant Water Snake. "Then you'll have to excuse my rudeness," Boleus replied with an impassive look before he suddenly dashed behind Han Xiong and knocked her out with a single strike. He then placed her on his shoulders before leaping deep into the valley. Ma Lei turned to Xiao Yun and asked, "Aren't you leaving?" Xiao Yun laughed bitterly. Now that the entire valley is surrounded by the damn water, other than that freak Boleus, no one else can leave. Why not risk it and fight it out? Dying on the battlefield is an honor to us warriors. Ma Lei turned to the soldiers on the city wall and barked, "Well said, brothers. Since we have no way to retreat, this is our final home. If we don't protect it, who will? Let's fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death." The soldiers had felt low in spirits when Boleus left, but under the motivation of Ma Lei and Xiao Yun, they were rejuvenated. Although they were facing a huge beast, their fear so powerful that their legs were shaky, they were still standing there, eyeing the distance. Ma Lei looked into the distance at the incoming mutant snake horde and sighed, "If only Leader Yu Zhong was here. He would definitely have a way to deal with this." The moment he spoke about Yu Zhong, Xiao Yun's eyes flashed with a complicated gaze. If it's him, he definitely would have a way. It's just that after he brought that Type 5 Diplodocus to destroy the Sun Alliance, there had been no news. Who knows if he's dead or alive? Xiao Yun had followed Yu Zhong in a bid to broaden his horizons and step on a bigger stage. He had seen for himself how Yu Zhong had created miracles after miracles. He knew that he was far from his match, and the jealousy towards him had long since disappeared, leaving only utmost respect. Before everybody's eyes, the horde of snakes was getting closer, and the fear in everyone's heart was rising. The city wall that had fended off so many other mutant beasts was nothing to these snakes. "Look at the sky." Just then, a warrior suddenly pointed to the skies and exclaimed. Everyone immediately looked up, only to see a floating fortress flying towards them. The gigantic floating city was enough to cover part of the sunlight, therefore almost blocking part of the sky. Ma Lei looked up and could not help sucking in a cold breath. That's a floating city. Xiao Yin took a look at the storm battleship and conjectured, there's actually such a city. What in the world could it be? Are there gods residing within? May the gods protect us. May the gods protect us. May the gods protect us and lead us through this." The soldiers began to get on their knees, praying and kowtowing to the ship. The physique of the human warriors on this world was much stronger than those on Earth. However, most of them had never received any education before. Many did not know how to perform simple maths, and were quite simple in intelligence. Hence, when they saw something they did not understand, they would attribute it to the higher powers. As they prayed, a figure clad in light gold suddenly descended down from the skies, turning into a beam of light that landed directly on the head of the Type 4 mutant water snake. The person was precisely Zhong. He had made use of the sun battle armor to push his strength to the peak of Type 5 realm. When he descended suddenly, the battle spear in his hands penetrated the head of the Type 4 mutant water snake. As the spear went through, a powerful force erupted, blowing a large hole in the head of the snake. The Type 5 force coupled with the sharp battle spear was enough to tear through even the armor of a Type 5 beast, not to mention this Type 4 mutant water snake. Zhong immediately burrowed through the fleshy wound, wielding his battle spear to tear the Type 4 mutant water snake from within. The mighty beast roared out in pain and rage, thrashing where it was, causing large waves to spread everywhere. A number of mutant water snakes of the basic and Type 2 realm were caught in the struggles of their overlord and were flattened into meat paste. The rest of the horde quickly dodged to one side, eyeing their king with wide eyes. This Type 4 mutant water snake was their overlord, and since it did not move, they lost their command and were thrown into confusion as well. After a few seconds, Zhong emerged from the head of the Type 4 mutant water snake, his hands holding a bright Type 4 nucleus. The Type 4 mutant water snake twitched slightly and slumped into the water. With its death, the dozens of Type 3 mutant water snakes instantly surrounded Zhong. They could sense danger from this man, and they ignited their innate abilities, firing black venom at him. Zhong's eyes narrowed, and with a flash he dashed across the surface of the water as though it was flat land, evading all the toxic spit. When the black venom landed in the water, many of the lower-level mutant beasts were immediately poisoned to death, causing their bodies to float up. Zhong continued to leap from head to head, using his battle spear to thrust through their brains. He would then retrieve the nuclei before jumping to another. With his enhanced Type 5 strength, he was practically invincible, flickering among the bodies of the Type 3 mutant water snakes. In just a few breaths, all of them were killed by him, and he gained many nuclei as a result. Right at this time, Greenie flapped its wings and shot down to the surface of the lake, biting down on a Type 2 mutant water snake and lifted it towards the skies. Greenie's species, the green-feathered eagle, was a natural predator of the mutant water snake. When it was at a Type 2 stage, it was already threatening to those Type 3 mutant water snakes. Many of them felt the threat from above and quickly sought to flee. In a few breaths, the huge horde of snakes was gone, leaving behind only the peaceful lake. Seeing this, everyone on the city wall heaved a sigh of relief. Zhong watched the horde of mutant snakes disperse, then quickly heading back to the city wall, jumping on top in a few flashes. The moment Ma Lei saw him, he got down on a single knee emotionally. "Leader, it's you. That's great. We greet Leader. Long live Leader. We greet Leader." The 200 soldiers erupted in cheers and excitement as they got down on a single knee and performed a respectful greeting. Had Zhong not appeared, the entire Vulture Valley would have fallen to those mutant water snakes. Seeing how Zhong went to take on the mythical-like Type 4 mutant sea snake by himself, as well as killing so many Type 3 mutant snakes and causing the rest to flee from terror, there was a blind idolizing in the hearts of the soldiers now. Zhong looked at these 200 soldiers and felt pleased. You all could step forth even in times of danger. Good. You're all men. He was pleased that he had such warriors who did not fear death for the sake of protecting their own homeland, those who did not give up even in the face of despair. He deeply appreciated such warriors. "Thank you for your praise, leader." Hearing his words, all the soldiers felt a wave of emotions. They venerated him, and at this moment where their feelings were the highest, such praise from their leader would cause them to be even more moved. He looked at all of them before frowning slightly in disappointment. "Where's Han Xiong? How come she isn't with you? Did she flee?" She was someone Zhong had grown to favor, possessing a resolute yet kind heart. In times of such danger, it was not strange that a lady might choose to flee. However, Zhong had harbored hopes for her, and since he did not see her, he was naturally disappointed. Male stepped forward to reveal the truth. "That's not true, leader. She did not run. It was Boleus who knocked her out for her own safety and brought her away. Han Xiong wanted to fight till the end together with us." Zhong pointed to the descending storm battleship and said, "Male, go get Sun Lan Lan and convey my orders. Everyone in the valley is to prepare to move to that city. From now on, that's our home." "What? That's our city?" "For real, that's our city." "Amazing." The soldiers took a look at the floating city, and their eyes flashed with delight and excitement. They could not help feeling that way, knowing that they were about to reside in a powerful-looking, floating fortress. Male was naturally no exception as he replied excitedly, "Yes, leader." Chapter 836, Cloud Region. Chapter 836, Cloud Region. Everyone was in a state of panic in Vulture Valley, but news of Zhong's return caused them all to be relieved. A huge crowd of them were assigned in batches by the government to board the storm battleship, their hearts filled with excitement. "This place is beautiful. Is this our new home?" Upon stepping on the storm battleship, everyone was taken aback as they took in the sights with wonder and amazement. The storm battleship used to be the Imperial city of the Storm Valley after all. Thus, many buildings were constructed with lavish and luxurious looks. The street layouts were extremely orderly and clean, a huge difference compared to the Vulture Valley. With the help of the different personnel, the entire population of Vulture Valley was settled on the storm battleship. Inside the cockpit, around a huge, oval-shaped table, the upper echelons of Storm Valley and Vulture Valley had gathered. Vulture Valley had more male officials, with only Han Xiong and Sun Lan the female exceptions. As for Storm Valley, they were all women, and beautiful ones at that, with Luo Qing and the Storm 8 Greats taking the helm. The Storm 8 Greats was an honorable title for those in the Storm Valley. Other than the Queen and Princess, they were the next most outstanding personnel. Although two had perished in the coup de grace and war with the Dino warriors, two other outstanding ladies quickly filled up the position. They were also as beautiful and had a strength of peak-type 3 divine warrior. Zhong's subordinates looked over at the ladies from Storm Valley, each of their eyes filled with a heated gaze and expectant look. These women were all beautiful and had attractive charms. The men were naturally drawn in. Beautiful. They have such a demeanor as well. Han Xiong and Sun Lan stared at the ladies, their eyes also filled with envy. They had never seen such beauties in their lives before. The storm warriors looked over at Zhong's subordinates, their gazes filled with disdain. They knew that they were outstanding and were proud of it. As for Zhong's men, none of them had reached the type 3 divine warrior stage, and in this world where the strong ruled the weak and power was everything, they naturally looked down on them. Zhong asked Luo Qing solemnly, "Today we're gathered here to discuss our next move and where to go." "Luo Qing, what plans does your Storm Valley have?" The storm battleship could not remain flying all the time. The energy consumption was an atrocious figure. The land was where humans belonged, and even though Zhong was still unclear about this world, he needed a place to set his foot and establish his faction. Luo Qing shot Zhong a strange look. "Green region is no longer suitable for us to reside in. Based on what I know, the Stegosaurus only has 4 battalions. Since one had been destroyed, they would definitely come for us. Everyone from the Storm Valley also looked to Zhong with strange gazes. They had heard from Han Zixin's mouth that this man in front of them had destroyed the natural dam of Green River, causing a flood to pour into the entire Green region, and he managed to defeat the seemingly invincible Dino army. At the same time, he was capable of summoning multiple mutant beasts, including a Type 5-1. Just based on the strength of his tame beasts which surpassed that of Storm Valley, they could not help but be interested. Luo Qing continued. Even if they're impeded by the water now, with their strength, if they're resolute enough, the Green region will still end up in their hands. However, because of the flood, it would take the Stegosaurus King about 3 to 5 years to gain full control. Within this period of time, the Stegosaurus army would definitely not step foot into Green region. They would still send mid-grade Dino-Generals to hunt us. After all, we destroyed their battalion. To them, it is a huge disgrace. Furthermore, the mid-grade Dino-Generals are too strong. We aren't their match. The only thing we can do now is to evacuate and expand in Cloud region. Zhong nodded slightly. He had experienced for himself the terror of a mid-grade Dino-General. It was not something he could handle right now. Previously, he had relied on the terrain and his mutant beast abilities to obtain a victory. If they were sent as assassins, then before Zhong could even have time to summon Mount Tai, he would be killed instantly. In order to defeat just one part of their forces, Zhong had been forced to reveal many of his trump cards. Those intelligent Dino-people would definitely think of ways to deal with him. The next time, he might have to face an entire squad of well-prepared mid-grade Dino-Generals. Mount Tai might have monstrous strength, but its weakness was very obvious. It had only a single style of attack, its range within a few hundred meters. There was no innate ability, and its movement speed was slow as well. As long as 10 Type 5 Divine Warriors rode on pterosaurs and used their abilities or powerful long-range weapons, they could easily deal with Mount Tai. Of course, the requirement was for Mount Tai to be out of a water body. Otherwise, it could easily dive into the waters, and the Dino warriors would be helpless. Zhong continued to ask, "What's the situation over at Cloud region? Is there anywhere suitable for us to expand?" Zhong had swallowed his fair share of factions, building up a decent-sized power. However, it was far from the Storm Valley's intelligence network. Luo Qing replied softly. Cloud region is the last front of the 12 northern regions. There are also many prehistoric technologies there. Even mid-grade Dino-Generals would not dare to enter alone. The Cloud region has been against the Triceratops kingdom for many years. Even though it has always been at a disadvantage, it has not been destroyed yet. Zhong revealed a look of interest. They can hold their own against the Dino kingdom? Seems like they're pretty strong. Our next destination should be there then. Zhong knew just how terrifying the Dino-people of this world was. Every single Dino kingdom was sure to have a few peak-level existences. The fact that the people of Cloud region could stand their ground, it meant that their weapons were definitely powerful, because the physique of the humans could not compare to the Dino-people. Luo Qing replied, Zhong, before we head there, I hope that you can make a trip to Gray Mountain first. Our allies, the Winged Race, is there. It was due to their help that we could maintain our guard at the Cracked Tooth Gorge for so long. I hope to invite them along. Zhong asked, how many people are there in the Winged Race? Luo Qing replied, 30,000. Their resources can be provided by our Storm Valley. Zhong fixed his gaze on her. There has to be a toll on them. The energy consumption of the Storm Battleship is large. If they want to board this ship, they need to pay a toll. I will not take them along for free. Luo Qing sunk into silence upon hearing those words. She was clear that the operation of the Storm Battleship required large amounts of nuclei. They could not provide it at all. Zhong's request for a toll was extremely reasonable. However, after so many battles, they had expended most of what they had, and could not fork out much. Zhong's eyes flashed as he continued. Luo Qing, I know that your Storm Valley doesn't have many nuclei right now. I hope that you can grant Han Zixian to me and allow her to work for me as my subordinate. I can waive the toll for the winged race. Han Zixian was someone Yu Zhong admired and respected for her strength and values. Even in times of despair, she did not abandon him and was loyal throughout, even if it was on Luo Qing's orders. Such a person would definitely aid Yu Zhong if she joined him. Hearing his request, Han Zixian turned pale, her expression one of bewilderment. Every subordinate of the Storm Valley also turned to look at Han Zixian with strange looks. Luo Qing frowned, her gaze on Yu Zhong turning cold. Yu Zhong, I've told you this, I will definitely not exchange my subordinates for anything. They are all independent people, and not goods to be exchanged. Yu Zhong did not get angry. Instead, chuckling, then please pay the toll for the winged race to join us on the journey. 3 Type 4 nuclei or 300 Type 3 nuclei. You know the energy requirements of the battleship. It's not an unreasonable amount. As long as you can fork out on account of our alliance, I can take them along. Remember, they're your Storm Valley's friends, not mine, Yu Zhong's friends. Luo Qing frowned and continued staring, her head filled with countless thoughts. 3 Type 4 nuclei, or 300 Type 3 nuclei, these are not small numbers. Even if they all submitted their current stash, it might not be enough. There's no need to quarrel. At this time, Han Zixian stood up, her pupils narrowing as she stared at Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong, I'm willing to be your slave and work for you. Please waive the fees for our friends of the winged race to board. Luo Qing stared at Han Zixian and exclaimed, Zixian, thought you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.